station.
Man, check this out.
You're on official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represents being real. Yeah.
Real, unfiltered sports talk. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas.
Lockdown.
This is the Rob Brown Show.
Get robbed.
Only on
The Fan Upstate.
You had to pull him. It sucks, dude. Sports are heartbreaking. Sports are painful. But you had to pull Paul Skeens from the no-no. You had to do it. He was at 99 pitches, man. And 99 pitches in the 8th inning, I probably let him come back out. All right? If that's bottom 8 and I'm at 99 pitches, I probably let him finish it out. Or at least try to. I go back out there, and the minute a foot touches a bag, then he's done. But man, you can't send a rookie. You can't send a rookie flamethrower out there. Throw in a $101, a $102 regularly, especially at the point where his fastball was starting to tail off a little bit. It was getting down to 99, and I'm only 98, 99 miles an hour. Yeah, it's still a ridiculous number. But I cannot have, if I am the Pirates, who, by the way, are in a wild card hunt right now. They are very much alive for the last wild card spot. It's not likely, but they're alive, and you never know what's going to happen when the second half gets underway, when we all come back from the All-Star break. You don't know what's going to happen. It could be 3 or 4 teams. The Pirates aren't going to make any moves around the deadline. At least they're not going to sell at the deadline. I don't know how active they'll be buying, but they're not going to sell at the deadline because they have built a team that has a solid young core. They have built a team that is very good and very young that's not going anywhere. So I don't know if they'll buy, but they're not going to sell, which means they will be in the race still. When it comes down to it, they will be alive still when it comes down to it. And if they have any chance of getting into the wild card, they need Paul Skeens to do Paul Skeens things. And Paul Skeens did a Paul Skeens thing yesterday, 11 Ks through 7 innings pitched. But again, he threw 99 pitches to get there. And if he goes out there into the 8th, and let's say he gets to 112, 113, 114. Now he's at the point where you're risking the arm. For what? For what is, and don't get me wrong, you guys have heard me say this on the show many times. I love a no-no. I love a dominant pitcher because I love the game itself, not just the score. A baseball game with 50 home runs is exciting. A baseball game that's 1-0 with 2 pitchers that are dominating, to me, is also exciting. Because it's not just about the touchdowns. It's about the blocks being set up. It's not just about the big plays. It's about the tactical formations. It's not just about the dinger. It's also about pitchers who go out there and do special things with the baseball. And Paul Skeens is doing that right now. So while I very much would have loved to have seen Paul Skeens go out there and hook up with a no-no, for sure. While I would have loved it, you can't risk it. You can't risk Paul Skeens' arm there. Because it is essentially, while it is cool, while it is a feat, while it is something that I know every pitcher wishes they could go do, it's a beauty pageant thing and nothing else. You don't get bonus points for the no-hitter. You don't pick up an extra win for the no-hitter. You don't get auto home field in a no-hitter. You don't get anything. You get the ability for the pitcher to go, bang, got a no-no. That's it. It's a beauty pageant award. And I love a beauty pageant award. That's what makes sports fun, for sure. But realistically speaking, What would you rather have if you're Pittsburgh? The lowest chance for Paul Skeens to get hurt, the lowest chance that something bad happens to the Rook, the lowest chance of anything going wrong, which means Paul Skeens is available for you deeper into the season, a season which you are alive for the wild card position right now, or Paul Skeens with a no-no, but he goes 115, 117 pitches deep because, again, it was the bottom of the 7th inning, not the bottom of the 8th. He had 6 more outs already at 99 pitches. So you're looking at, let's say tentatively, let's say very conservatively, 3 pitches per batter to get everybody out. You're still looking at 18 more pitches minimum because Paul Skeens is not getting the K or is not getting outs by throwing, 8, 9, 10 pitch at bats that result in a ground out. He's throwing 8, 9, 10, 11 pitch at bats, trying to get guys K'd up, and the fastball was already dropping off. It was already going from 101, 102 down to 98, 97. So the things that makes Paul Skeens were starting to go away or fade a little bit. And what if you send that guy out there and he goes 124 pitches with an out to go, and then he gives up a single because his fastball melted? Then what? Then where are you at? What did you get for it? You dogged your pitcher's arm. You dogged your pitcher's arm for nothing. Because we're not gonna get to the end of the year and go, congrats on Paul Skeens for all those almost no hitters you got. That's not how it works. You either get it or you don't. And I think it was a big risk. I get it. Everybody was up in arms last night. I was looking at Twitter. Everybody was infuriated that they pulled Paul Skeens off the no-no effort. If that's bottom 8, I'll send him out bottom 9 to try to finish it up. If that's bottom 8 and he needs 3 more outs, all right, I'll let him go try to get it. But with the pitch count max, right? My guy, you got 15 pitches to get this done. I don't know if you want to try to draw ground ball contact. I don't know if you want to throw every single pitch in the zone and just go for K up to 15. I don't know how you want to do it. It's your call. I'll let you and the catcher figure this out. But you got 15 pitches because what I'm not going to do is have my Rook, who is one of the reasons that we are alive in the wild card hunt. I'm not going to have my Rook go out there, throw until the arm falls off for a beauty pageant prize when we're alive for the playoff. All right. I don't know why I felt the need to just jump straight in on that, but I saw the internet lost its friggin' mind yesterday, dude. The internet lost its entire damn mind that the Pirates pulled Paul Skeens after 99 with a no-hit alive through 7. Hey, relax. I love a no-hitter, but it's a beauty pageant prize. And sending my guy out there for a beauty pageant prize, knowing that he needs 6 more outs, which again, conservatively, at the absolute most efficient he could be, you're looking at my guy going 117 pitches as a rookie with a flamethrower of an arm. If he was a finesse pitcher, right? If he's an off-speed pitcher, if he's a guy who's throwing 85 more than he's throwing 99, then I might do it. Then I might do it. If he's a contact hitter, if he's a ground ball hitter, if he's a finesse K hitter, a guy that's working off-speed and moving balls more than heaters, then maybe at that point I'll send it back out there and go, all right, man, like if you get out of the 8th with less than 109 pitches, I'll consider the 9th. Or if Paul Skeens has 99 pitches through 8 innings, I'll send him back out. But he had 2 innings left to go already at a butterfly's breath from 100 pitches. I can't do that. I can't do. You're too important. You're too important to what this club is trying to accomplish this year. All right, we're going to talk about your baseball today because it's my show and I want to. Shut up. Welcome in the Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. I am Rob Brown, the great Malonzo on vacation. Which texter that just asked why no Fight Club this week? There actually was a Fight Club this week. We did Fight Club on Wednesday. Here's a fun thing. If you ever miss any of the show, like if you missed Fight Club, which we did at 9:20 on Wednesday morning, you can go to our website, thefanupstate.com. And at the top in the middle of the page, you will see a button that says podcast. You click on that button, you drop that button down, you select the Rob Brown Show. It'll take you to another page. And on that page is the podcasted version of the radio program. And you're welcome, may go back and listen to whatever it is that you missed, every hour and the full show available on demand once the show goes off the air. So go to thefanupstate.com, go back to Wednesday's show, go back to 9:20 a.m., and you will hear Fight Club. But the reason we didn't do it yesterday, the reason we're not doing it today is because the great one is out on vacation. Off, I'm assuming right now, shirtless and soaking up the rays on some nondescript beach in the middle of nowhere. My man Brandon is up in the building today chatting with us. What's up, big dog?
Hey, you know what? It's Friday. We made it. We're here. Let's get it going. I get to be with you lovely people, and I get to be with Rob. It's going to be a great day.
Do like a Friday. Do like a Friday.
Do my Friday dance right here, y'all.
What a day we got lined up, man. We got to talk about. Brandon asked me when I came in this morning, did you go watch the ESPYs last night? I'm gonna keep it a buck. I didn't. I really didn't. I actually thought about it. I was considering it, and then the fiance came home, and I had one of those moments of like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna spend time with her. I mean, this may shock you. I'm a fan of my fiance, so I was like, you know what? There's no soccer on tonight. The Braves don't start until 9:48 p.m.
Dark 30.
Yeah. Bleep you o'clock at night. So I was like, it's too late to watch a Braves game. I did watch the Braves game. I did watch the first game. I did watch the first game of this 4-game set on the road against Arizona. I watched the first game entirely, the extra innings game. I watched through about the 7th of game 2. And the last 2 nights, I was like, nah, I just don't. I ain't got that dog in me like that. So no Euro on last night, no Copa on last night. I was like, yeah, you know what, dude, I'm going to bed. So we made our homemade what do you call it? Carb-free crust at-home pizza last night. We watched like the first hour of Lord of the Rings because she's never seen Lord of the Rings.
Wait, what? Never?
That is correct.
Rob, that's so sad. That is one of the best movie series ever.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't know what you're trying to
convince me. Did you get her
me.
hooked, though?
Nah, I don't think it's her thing. So let me tell you where it's at. She's super big on Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. We have been watching House of the Dragon. We did watch because I worked BetMGM tonight, Monday and Tuesday, and then I worked You Better You Bet yesterday, and so Wednesday was the only night off I had this week. And so we did watch. We finally caught up on House of the Dragon episode. What are we on? 4 now. Super big into 4 into House of the Dragon. Super big into Game of Thrones. She is traipsing lightly into Star Wars territory. Like she's watched the original trilogy now. She's got all the questions. We have got it on the schedule to get to the prequel trilogy, the Anakin trilogy. She's in for that. And then I'll say, I think I'm going to have her watch Rogue One. I don't think I'm going to have her watch the last 3. They were just bad. So I'm kind of up in the air about that. But I like it's a spot where we're in a good enough spot right now. Like I'm happy with what I got. I love Lord of the Rings, but I also acknowledge that like Lord of the Rings is the precipice of nerddom. It's like the peak of nerddom. It does not get nerdier
I'm
than Lord of the Rings.
Cassie to watch that. Cassie's like, I'm not really big into this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh my God, it's one of the best series. And they're making another one with Gollum. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see it. And she's like, what is so exciting about watching this? I'm like, you have to understand that, this is something we grew up as watching. We grew up reading. I mean, I remember watching the cartoon series on Cartoon Network of the Lord of the Rings. Do you remember that?
I do not. That may have been before my time.
Okay, look, you're not much younger than I am. You're only half a year younger than I am. Come on now. And I'm 40.
I think that when it comes to Lord of the Rings, of what, I'm a fan. Diesel, you want to have a conversation about this? Diesel's your guy. Diesel's the dude. Not just read every books, but like he's got a dog. His dog is named after Aragorn's horse. That's how deep he is, right? His dog is named after Aragorn's horse. He's your dude. Like I love the movies a lot. I have started the books about 15 times, and they gotten overwhelmed by just how much literature there is. So I have not finished the books, but I love the movie series. I think it's phenomenal. But I am also going to tell you, I've got her into Star Wars. I've got her into Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. I think I'm going to be good with that because, man, when it comes down to it, Tolkien is like he's the peak of Mount Dork is what he is. And I'm allowed to say it because I'm a dork. All right. I can say it. You can't because I'm a dork. But it's the peak of dorkdom. When you start diving into the lore of the elves, the dwarves, and men who most above all seek power, if you can't get into that, I understand it, right? If you can't get into Star Wars, I don't get it. Star Wars is for everybody. If you can't get into the comic book movies, I don't get it. There's a superhero for everybody. If you can't get into Lord of the Rings, it makes sense because there's centuries of stories out of that universe. And it's a lot. It's a lot. It's like peak dorkdom. And as a dork, I love it. But if I've got her on, I think it's one of those things where if I've got her on Game of Thrones, if I've got her on House of the Dragon, if I've got her on Star Wars, I think I'm going to be real happy with where I've got her. I think I'm going to be real. Like there's enough material in those two universes, really, because I've got her in for Marvel as well. So there's enough in those three universes to quench my need to be a gigantic nerd around my own house and have a woman who doesn't go, you loser, get out.
Ain't nothing wrong with having her hooked at least 3/4 of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, she started Lord of the Rings with me last night, but like when we've watched Marvel movies, it'll end and she'll have questions, right? She'll be like, well, what about this? And what's this guy? And who's that? And why this? And what's that equipment and whatever. When we watched Star Wars for the first time, it got to the end and she's like, so who's Darth Vader? And I'm like, hang in there. You'll find out, right? So what's Obi-Wan's connection with Luke? Hang in there. You'll find out, right? Like she had all these questions, started watching Marvel, same thing. Got her in. And I started her. We did chronological order. I started her with Iron Man 1. Had her, not chronological, like movie release order. Started with Iron Man 1. We get to the end and she's like, okay, so Tony? And what's the Avengers Initiative? And yada, yada. And I'm like, hang in there. You're going to find out. We got through an hour and a half of Lord of the Rings last night. She was like, okay, go to bed. They had no questions. Did not care. So I'm going to take what I got. I'm going to take what I got and be happy with it. All right. We have a lot to get to today. We've got to get to a lot of baseball on the show today as we get closer and closer to the Midsummer Classic. 3 games left for the majority of teams, including the Braves on the road at the Padres. This series against Arizona, oh, I had such high hopes when it started. I was like, oh, they figured something out. The boys are cooking. Here we go. Thought we were in a good spot. And then we dropped the last 2 because we just forgot how to, we hit a baseball for 2 nights and then we forget how to hit the baseball for 2 nights. 5 hits last night. Bravos drop a 1-0 decision on the road at Arizona. So they split a 4-game series 2-2 with a ball club that is a 500 ball club. I can't figure it out. How do you go beat the Yankees? How do you beat the Phillies in a series? How do you get up 2 games on Arizona and then just forget how to baseball? How do you forget how to do a baseball? So we'll talk about the Braves later on in the radio program. I want to talk a little college ball on the show today, college football specifically on the show today, because yesterday we were talking a little bit about some potential college realignment down the line. and what it might look like. There is, and again, I'm going to acknowledge this is an off-season conversation. But there was a rumor that started floating up around yesterday. You know all those ACC schools that are looking at leaving? Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami are the ones that we know about, and then there might be others. What if the Big 12 ends up making a play? We've been sitting here going, oh, Clemson, over to the AC or to the SEC, Florida State to the Big 10. What if they go here? Would South Carolina block this team? Would, Florida block that team? We've gone through all that, and I think it's fair to do so. What I'm very interested in is this report that started coming out yesterday that maybe the Big 12 is going to make a move. Maybe the Big 12 is going to look at picking up these schools. Maybe the Big 12 is going to start making a push for these cats. Why? Because the Big 12 needs to keep existing. And if they add Clemson, Miami, Florida State, North Carolina to the fold, how about this fun fact? If Clemson, Florida State join the Big 12, the Big 12 would have more national championship winners in this century than the Big 10 if Clemson and Florida State move over. Does that take them a step towards the Big 10? Does that at least guarantee we will end up with the Power 3 and not the Power 2 plus the Big 12 serving as the EEC? I'd like to talk about that and a whole lot more as the Rob Brown Show rolls on. Let's run to our first break. When we come back here in just a minute, let's talk about last night's Braves game. Let's talk about this series against Arizona, and let's talk about the upcoming series against the San Diego Padres. That's coming up next. Rob Brandon and you, the Rob Brown Show. It's the Fan Upstate.
Join us for passionate sports talk that's sure to stir the pot. This is the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
Serena does seem cool, man. I'd hang out with Serena.
2 years ago, he pretty much individually won me my fantasy baseball league.
This was 2 years ago because last year's
I
team
won
I know
one
was
game.
not good.
Yeah, because I couldn't do the draft. I had cousin Joe do the draft. He got drunk instead. It became a mess because I couldn't communicate because you and I were doing the show.
We were. It was just you and me in here.
I did too.
I told you to, when you're up, take it off. I'll talk.
That should be-
I could do it to you.
I would have helped you out.
One of the top 10 women's tennis players of all time. But Serena
Live
exists.
sports betting updates as they happen. Weeknights at 7.
On the Fan Upstate.
From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Weather Center, here's the Carolinas' most trusted forecast on the Fan Upstate. For today, we'll see a good
I
deal
was
of
at that
sunshine,
game.
highs in the lower 90s. Partly cloudy
I
tonight,
cried like a
73.
girl that night.
Some pop-up afternoon showers and storms possible both Saturday and Sunday with highs in the mid-90s. I'm meteorologist Michael Carroll on the Fan Upstate. Right now, it's 73.
Have you been wanting to find the secret to losing weight and getting healthy the natural way without drugs or injections? Hi, this is Dr. Elliot Hirschstrom with New Life Weight Loss, and we know the secret to losing
At
a half
that
a pound
game,
to a
it
pound of
is
fat every day
my
naturally, safely,
second
and
favorite sports
effectively,
memory of
without
all
counting
time.
points or calories, no exercising, no prepackaged meals, no drugs, no surgery. Go to mynewlifeweightloss.com now.
Hey, it's Rob Brown. I went back home to Florida last weekend to spend time with friends and family. I haven't seen it in a while, and I cannot tell you how nice it felt, thanks to my friends at New Life, to be down all this weight and have people telling me how good I look, to be wearing vacation clothes and feel like I looked good on vacation. It works.
Many patients lose 20 to 30 pounds in about a month or two. That's up to a pound per day. For your free consultation, call 864-719-2550 or go to mynewlifeweightloss.com. Our expert team will discuss your health goals, help determine the root causes of your weight issues, and put you on a path to success. Go to mynewlifeweightloss.com now.
It's been years in the making, and now Greenville is home to the most epic comic and game store around. Borderlands Comics and Games. Reimagined, bigger, and better than before. The state's premier hobby shop has been bringing the best in comics,
I'm just
manga,
gonna
and
stop
gaming to the region for 3
getting
decades.
my hopes
Come
up.
see us at our amazing location at 410 South Pleasantburg. Live the Borderlands experience for yourself. We've gone to a whole new level. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. Proud sponsors of the Upstate Pulse. Borderlands Comics and Games. Read, build, play.
When something happens to your kitchen, you might say,
This is ludicrous.
but that won't fix your home. That will only get you the rapper, Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need
They,
to find a lane.
I am convinced they dead in the baseball. I'm convinced they dead in the baseball.
State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on
But
the
also,
app or call
like
us.
pitching's an
matter
arm
how
race. It's getting
ludicrous
better
the
year by
situation.
year.
Like a good
I don't know that I can chalk it
State
up to
Farm is
that
there. State Farm.
or exclusively that.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Sponsored by South Carolina Education Lottery. The Powerball jackpot for Saturday is $54 million. Be sure to stop by your local South Carolina Education Lottery retailer and get your ticket today. See sceducationlottery.com for jackpot odds in a store near you.
No need to check the clock. It's Rob Brown time. Now, weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on the Fan Upstate.
So, the Braves. Let's talk about the Braves. Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone is open 844-326-3663, 844-FANFO. And Braves fans, I need your thoughts right now. I need you in on this conversation because I prefer it not to be a monologue because while I do, and this is true, my Twitter bio says it is, while I do know ball, I'd kind of like to know what you guys are thinking right now. Here's where I'm at. I don't think I'm going to panic about whatever happens against San Diego. San Diego's a good team. San Diego is a team that is hanging out a second in a very good NL West. And the only reason that they're not in first place is because the Dodgers exist. Dodgers getting swept by the Phillies, by the way. Huh? Are the Phillies that bleeping good?
How's that $1.7 billion offseason going for you now, LA?
Dude, here's the thing. I can't be mad at LA. Mookie's banged up. Their pitching staff, Glasnow's hurt again. Shohei's not pitching. Like, it's wild to me that the Dodgers are an NL World Series favorite, and justifiably so. And they are going to be better next year when Shohei's able to get back out on the bump, when they're able to cover up some of the other guys that have been getting dinged up because they're going to have even more depth. Keep in mind right now, just the injured LA Dodgers right now, just the guys that aren't playing right now would be like the 10th best team in Major League Baseball. All right, it's wild. And then on top of that, I'm at the point now where, I've been saying this going into the last couple of postseasons. James, I love you, bro. You're my guy. I hate the damn Phillies. I hate the Phillies so much. All right? It's not true. That is true. I hate the Phillies. I just hate all things Philadelphia sports. All right? It's the worst. That's the worst group of sports fans in America. Philly, here's the thing. You want to know how I know that? Because I've said that a million times, and every time I talk to somebody from Philly, they're like, thank you. It's not a compliment. They don't care. It is to them. Hate the Phillies. But I've been telling Braves fans for the last couple of years, I felt like this team is very close to doing something special. Look at that lineup, man. Bryce Harper is a guy that if Bryce Harper played anywhere else, Bryce Harper would be my favorite Major League Baseball player, right? I love this guy. He's funny. He's fun. He clearly enjoys playing ball. And oh, by the way, he can play some damn ball. Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber's a master. How do you not love Kyle Schwarber? The guy's just fun. Brandon Marsh. If a guy like Brandon Marsh walks into my bar, I'm going to be like, sup, dude? And I know I'm about to have a righteous time, bro. Love Brandon Marsh. I love Trey Turner. Trey Turner's a stud. Kyle Realmuto, JT Realmuto. I know he's out hurt right now, but like Real Muto's that guy, like on a team full of characters, he's the one guy that's just like silent assassin. You know, I could, if you played a clip from JT Real Muto right now, I don't know that I could tell you that's who it was. I love this team. If they were another team and they weren't from Philly, I'd love this team. I'd be like, this is my favorite team in baseball right now. And I have been telling Braves fans for like 2 years now, y'all got to be careful. Because this Phillies team is friggin' building something right now. Like they are the Braves the last couple of years that they've gone on these runs to the NL East crown have done it because they've put together a very good young core. And then they've gone out when it was deadline time and they found the right guy that was out on the market to fill in the blanks. Philly, for all the talk about Baltimore and Kansas City and who else? These homegrown Boston, these homegrown teams. Philly too, and nobody talks about them.
Remember, Atlanta used to be the homegrown team. They used to have one of the best farm systems in all of baseball.
Oh, they still do. Let's be very clear. They still do, right? Ronald Acuna Jr., the entire pitching staff, like this is a homegrown organization. But and I'll tell you right now, I think that. Despite the fact, I say homegrown organization, you have guys like Matt Olson and Sean Murphy who came over from Oakland. But same with like every team. Like is your core home built? Pittsburgh, Paul Skeens and company, homegrown organization. There's been a philosophy shift in baseball where a lot of teams are kind of moving over to that. They're moving over to let's build a good young core in our farm system. Let's have like 6 or 7 of our lineup spots filled up with guys that we draft, we groom in the minors, we set them up, and then every year we'll make our big 1 or 2 all-star caliber player splash. Atlanta's in the same boat for sure. But man, like Philly grew these boys. And I've said the last couple of years. In fact, going into both of the last 2 off seasons, I have said, don't be shocked if Philly beats the Braves. Listen to the lineup they've put together. Kyle Schwarber as a DH is leading off. Stud. Trey Turner, stud. Bryce Harper, stud. Alec Boehm has rounded into an excellent player batting cleanup. Bryson Stott, pretty good player. Nick Castellanos. Anytime there's a national tragedy, Castellanos hits 3 home runs. All right. For Atlanta's sake, when the playoffs roll around, if they catch Philly again, you better hope that we're just having a lovely time in America, or else Castellanos is going to murder you. But Castellanos, great outfielder, good player. Brandon Marsh is batting 7th, as well as Brandon Marsh is playing. He's batting 7th right now. He rounded out yesterday's lineup, with Johan Rojas and Garrett Stubbs. It's a good lineup. Oh, and by the way, they were doing that because they gave Whit Merrifield the day off. That guy's a player, streaky, but a player. They just swept the LA Dodgers. I want you to know, I am now leaning on Philly as a freaking good baseball team. It is no longer they're hot streaking. It is no longer they had a weak first half. I've heard that a lot. They had a weak first half. I've heard it a lot. I've been saying it. Don't worry about Philly weak first half schedule. No, they're good now. They're very good now. They swept the Dodgers. First team in the league to get to 60 wins. Sorry, 61 wins now. 9.5 up on Atlanta. They are what? They're 6 up on the Dodgers at this point. Nobody else even close. Over in the American League, the best teams, 2 teams, Cleveland and the Orioles with 57 wins. This team's good now. This team is good now. Not kind of good. The Phillies are the dominant force in Major League Baseball. So when I look at Atlanta, I'm trying to say, whatever happens with this 3-game set against the Padres, ultimately it doesn't matter. Because the Braves cannot win the NL East. If Ronnie was healthy and Spencer Strider was healthy, maybe. But Ronnie wasn't having a repeat my MVP season this year, right? Like he was playing good ball, but he wasn't a threat to win the NL MVP back-to-back years this year. Spencer Strider is the only one that was like hitting his stride when he went down. If those two guys are back in the lineup and Ronnie finds a return to form, like maybe you can be in the mix with Philly. This team's stupid good, dude. This team is stupid good, officially. So, Atlanta fans, don't panic because there's no point. You're not catching Philly. You're not. It doesn't matter how easy your second half schedule is or how tough Philly's is. You're not running down Philadelphia.
I have to interject on this one. I really believe you're wrong. I think the Braves will and can catch because remember, I believe it was 19. Everybody said it was the Mets division. Mets this, Mets that. And the Mets spent the most money to have the biggest collapse.
If you don't see the difference between this Philly lineup and the Mets, I don't know what to tell you. Mets are the Mets.
I think the Braves actually have a chance. I believe they're going to be able to perform above our current expectations after the All-Star break. You'd be surprised. And remember, the Phillies, they've always been a half team. It's normally been either the first half of the season or the second half. They've never been a 162 game team. They've always struggled in one form or the other. So, the second half still has to come. Philly could go on this awful something. Remember, look at and here's an example. Look at the Yankees. They were the hottest team. They were the best team in baseball. And now they're one of the worst because they can't seem to win. I believe they're 6-20 in the last 26 games.
Yeah, I'm not worried about New York. I think they need a reset at the break. Some teams need a reset. The Mets are the Mets. That's why they're the LOL Mets, because they LOL Mets every season. I don't care about the money that your lineup represents. I care about the numbers around it. The Mets lineup, when they spent more money than anybody ever had in baseball, the Mets lineup was okay. Like, it was good. It was good on paper. In terms of performance, it was okay. The Phillies just had a 2-week run without Schwarber and Harper. And they were fine. Get those two guys. And when those two guys came back, I was like, I'll take a minute to get the lineup settled. Take a minute to get this lineup back to normal. Take a minute No, they just came out and kicked the Dodgers' ass in 3 straight. Not beat them. Kicked their asses in 3 straight games. Listen, I hope you're right. I hope there's a fall off. I hope Philly stinks. I hope they lose every game in the second half. I hope they crumble under the pressure. And I get to come back to this show in late August, early September, and go, Brandon, ball. But what right now, other than hopes and dreams and wishes as a Braves fan, what are you leaning on to say that? You're leaning on a narrative, not anything you're seeing on the diamond. And I can't do that. I can't go down that path with you yet. So we'll see how it plays out. Let's take a break. When we come back here in just a minute, got a few more things I want to get into. We got some college football coming up. There is a rumor going around that something's going down. Could Clemson, Florida State, could North Carolina, could they all end up in the Big 12? Is there a possibility that these teams all end up together in the Big 12? We're going to talk about that later in the show. Got your water cooler cheat sheet coming up at 7 o'clock this morning. Phone lines open. 844-326-3663. That's the renewal by Intercenter of the Carolinas fan phone. Text line 71307-71307. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N. We'll read them on the air. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
Real sports talk, real sports fans.
All right, guys, stepping away for 15 seconds, and then I will come back and talk about the NCAA football game. Stay right there.
Why you should shower with Old Spice.
All right, y'all, we're
Super
back.
Hydration
Thanks for
Body
hanging in
Wash
there.
instead of
Good
plain old
morning,
wash.
everybody.
Love your skin by super hydrating.
Trey, the answer is yes, I am going to get it, but I'm probably going to be behind on getting it because I've got to finish up.
Men have skin too.
I've got to finish up all of the wedding payment stuff before I can buy the new console, and I've got to buy the new console before I can get the game on this.
Of O'Reilly brake
So
parts cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
my hope is that once everything's paid for with the wedding, I'll have enough in the funsies account left over to pick up a new console and the game.
Pepsi Zero Sugar, Mountain Dew, or Starry. Grab a delicious
There is a slight chance, a small chance, that Zoe and I will get a promo copy of the game, and then I'll just have to sacrifice to go get the console. Texas said Philly didn't grow any of those dudes. Those players all came from elsewhere except Bohm, not homegrown. Yeah, I realize after that text that the way that I phrased it, and that's on me, the way that I phrased it, I was not trying to include Philly in that conversation with Atlanta, Baltimore, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, those teams.
I think you're talking about the young movement, as they call
it. Yeah. I was not trying to include Philly in those teams. So if I let me phrase that. Not if I did make it sound that way, and that's on me. That's on me. I should have phraseologied that a little bit better. No, Schwarber, Turner, Bryce Harper, all these guys came from other places. Now, some of them had only been at other places for I think Trey Turner was with the Nats for a while. I think Harper was as well, but Brandon Marsh, I think, was elsewhere for 2 seasons before he came over. So still got him young and developed him. But yes, Texter, I appreciate you checking me and keeping me honest on that one. I was not trying to include Philly in that mix, and I realized that I made it sound as if I was, and that's on me. But you are correct. Philly did not homegrown this lineup. They built this lineup. But I would also argue that they built this lineup out of a group of guys, with a couple of exceptions, that were elsewhere for 2-3 seasons. Then they came to Philly and kind of found their form. Either way, Philly's put together a freaking good baseball team, dude. It's just a freaking good baseball team right now. So kind of is what it is. All right. Let's get to a couple of other stories that we've got to hit on so far this morning. I wasn't going to talk about this. I know we kind of hit it yesterday. In fact, yesterday I was on You Better You Bet with Jeremy Kahn on the BetQL Network. And one of our guests was Barrett Salih, who we are, by the way, going to have on the show next week. I've spoken with Barrett. And once we kind of start before we get to SEC Media Days, we're going to get Barrett Salih on the show to talk a little bit about just college football in general. But Jeremy Kahn, my co-host, asked him about the comments of Mike Gundy. So background of this story is that Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon was arrested on suspicion of DUI a couple of days ago. And Ollie Gordon showed up at Big 12 Media Days, and it was announced that by the Cowboys, Ollie Gordon would not be serving any sort of suspension, that his punishment was going to be handled in-house. And there was a lot of blowback from that. Oklahoma State opens the season against San Diego State. Then they have Arkansas in week 2. A lot of blowback from that. And Mike Gundy, as most coaches would, I think, came to the defense of Ollie Gordon and the fact that the Cowboys have decided that they are not going to suspend him for a DUI driving incident. Mike Gundy made comments where he said, it was dumb, but we all do it. And then he said that I've probably done it 1,000 times. Now, I try to play the role of the realist. I try to play the role of somebody who does not deal in idealisms. I deal with the fact that, the world's a tough place. Life's tough. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some forgiveness. Recognize that mistakes are mistakes. And for those of you that listen to the show, you know that more often than not, I end the show with, don't drink and drive, I'll punch you in the face. All right? Because drinking and driving has had a dramatic impact on my family. It is something I'm very against. I will also say that, I know a lot of people, and I am probably guilty at the age of Ollie Gordon, probably doing the thing that everybody's upset about. Probably as a 21, 22-year-old kid, I probably did get behind the wheel of a car a drink or two past the point that I should have. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. But at the same time, I don't think just because it's a mistake that a lot of people make, I don't necessarily think that it should be something that we just go, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, right? What are you going to do? It is something that you should absolutely be disciplined for, even if it is a mistake that a lot of people make, even if it is a mistake or decision that a lot of people make, that, maybe Mike's right. Maybe everybody who is imbibed has made this decision at least once. Just because that happened, and just because you were fortunate to avoid killing somebody, just because you were fortunate to avoid any mistakes, just because you were fortunate to avoid whatever, does not mean that it's not something that should have consequences if somebody gets caught doing it, right? So for this guy to say, quote, but I thought really 2 or 3 beers or 4, I'm not justifying what Ollie did. I'm telling you a decision I made. I thought I've probably done that 1,000 times in my life, which is fine. So I got lucky. People get lucky. Ollie made a decision that he wished he could have done better. Yeah, Mike, no, man, no. Remember, you're a man. You're 40. I mean, 53 at this point. Is he 53 or 50? He's 53 now, right?
56, I believe.
Mike Gundy, age 56. You're right. Good call. You were a man. You were 40 16 years ago.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
If you are still making that decision, and I will say, I'm going to put college athletes, especially at a school like at Oklahoma State, I'm going to put them in the same boat as professional athletes. There is zero reason for you to drink and drive. Zero. Okay? Zero. Ubers are everywhere. And while I acknowledge that Uber's kind of gotten a little expensive, right? It's gotten a little expensive. When Uber began, Uber was incredible. I used to be able to Uber from the local watering hole that was about 7 miles from my house. I used to be able to Uber home from that place for like $6. Now that's like a $26 ride. I get it. But if you're a professional athlete or you're a kid at a D1 school, I'll make this bet. I bet if Ollie Gordon would have called Mike Gundy and gone, Coach, I'm about 6 Yinglings deep and I need a ride, I'd be willing to bet in order to make sure that Mike Gundy doesn't lose his starting running back, I'd be willing to bet Mike Gundy himself would have hopped in his Range Rover or whatever, would have driven across Stillwater or wherever, and would have picked Ollie up. Hell, even if Ollie was back home in whatever town he comes from and called Mike and be like, Mike, I knocked back a couple too many Coronas, my man. I need a ride. I bet Mike would have worked that out. I bet Mike would have got on the horn and been like, you sit right there in that bar stool, don't move, somebody's on the way, and gotten somebody. I respect a player. I respect a coach coming to the defense of a player. I get why you're doing it, but this was not the right way to handle it. It's really not. Just because everybody's done it. I sound like my freaking dad. Just because everybody's done it, just because you've made that mistake, and just because my man didn't hurt anybody when he was driving drunk directly, doesn't mean we just go, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, right? Everybody, no. It's still a decision that must come with consequences. It's still a decision that must be questioned, must be called out. There still should be some punishment. Not a coach coming to the fence going, I've probably done it 1,000 times. Listen, I'm not saying if you head to the bar after work and you knock down a beer, that makes you suddenly unsafe to get behind the wheel of a car. All right? Drink a water, wait 30 minutes, and then go home. Fine, whatever. What I am saying is that, first off, I'm willing to bet that my man Ollie didn't go knock down a Corona or two and then get behind the wheel, right? Not a lot of college kids that are well-known D1 football players going to the bar to have a beer. Mike, you can't do this, man. You can't do this. Gundy later tried to clarify that when he spoke about doing that 1,000 times in my life, what he meant to say was, we are all guilty of making bad decisions. It was not a reference to something specific. Come on, dog. Come on. Ollie screwed up. You screwed up. Own it and let's move on. But because what you're doing now is you have just sent a message to every other college football player that comes in contact with you that, this ain't that bad. This ain't that big of a deal. It kind of is. It kind of is. It's kind of a big deal. And when you set a precedent at your university that drinking and driving isn't a big deal, even if it is something that you've done 1,000 times, you have set that school, you have set your program, you have set you up for absolute disaster at this spot. Can't do it. For a guy that I have liked, because as I've said with Dion, and we're going to talk about him later on in the day, as I've said with Deion Sanders, as I've said with Dabo Sweeney, as I've said with Shane Beamer, I like a coach who brings a little character, a little personality to college sports. College sports is better when we've got these larger than life figures that are kind of at the top of it that we can all go, lulz, that guy's fun, that guy's funny. But this is not the right way to go about it, Mike. This is not to effectively, whether you intended to or not, say drinking and driving isn't a big deal. Am I saying everybody's done it? No. Am I saying that a lot more people than will admit it in public have done it? Absolutely. I'm no idiot. Mama didn't raise no fool. What I am saying is, just because that's the case doesn't mean we should be okay with it. Doesn't mean we should not talk bad about it. Doesn't mean we should not discipline kids for it. Not go out there and go, well, I've done that 1,000 times. Well, then you're a dumbass too, Mike. You're a dumbass too. You're a man. You're 56. Your job is to set a better example than that. And you know, I don't like to get into the idealism of like, you got to raise productive members of society. I don't care about that. No, you don't. Your job as a football coach is to win football games. Let's call a spade a spade. Your job is to win football games. But man, like this is just basic. This is just basic decency. This is just basic handling of life. And this is basic handling of sports flash. The Atlanta Braves took the first two, but split a 4-game series at Arizona with their second consecutive loss to the Diamondbacks last night. Max Fried surrendered 5 hits through 6 innings while striking out 7, but a 5th-inning home run from Eugenio Suarez cost Atlanta, who just had 5 hits of their own and only 1 for extra base hits. The 1-0 loss puts the Braves back to 10 games over 500 at 51-41 and 9.5 back of Philadelphia in the East. Former NFL defensive coordinator and coaching legend Monty Kiffin passed away yesterday at the age of 84. Kiffin spent more than 50 years coaching in the NFL and college ranks, including the last 4 as a defensive analyst at Ole Miss for his son, Lane Kiffin. Monty was best known for his 13 seasons with Tampa Bay, where he served as defensive coordinator for Tony Dungy, innovating the Tampa 2 defense en route to the 2002 Super Bowl, and is the only assistant coach in Tampa's Ring of Honor. Make sure you pay attention to Wire 3 to 7 p.m. right here on the Fan Upstate.
The Fan Upstate is counting down to the start of the ACC football kickoff.
Bang, nailed it. All right, guys, give me just a minute. We'll come right back. Stay right there.
Users
Okay,
for
we're back. Thanks
scratch-made
for hanging in
Asian
there.
cuisine. Visit your local PF Chang's or go to pfchangs.com for website design, development, digital marketing, and hosting that produce efficiency, revenue, and results. Visit AmericanEagle.com. PF Chang's and AmericanEagle.com. Another example of the best businesses in the world, turning to the best in the business for websites. Go to AmericanEagle.com or call 877-WEB-NOW1. That's 877-WEB-NOW1.
The Fan.
Upstate.
WYRD Greenville.
WORD Spartanburg.
WFBC HD3 Greenville.
W249DL Greenville.
W246CV Spartanburg. The Fan.
Upstate.
An Odyssey Sports Station.
Man, check this out.
You're on official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represents being real. Yeah.
Manufactured locally for the Carolinas. This is the Rob Brown Show. Get robbed. Only on
The Fan. Upstate.
Here we go. Hour number 2 of the Rob Brown radio program starts right now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Fan Upstate. I am Rob Brown. My guy Brandon filling in for the great one, Lonzo, who is off on vacation this week. He will rejoin us coming up next Thursday on the show. Nice little week of rest and relaxation. Well-deserved, well-earned week of rest and relaxation for the great one, Lonzo. Glad to have Brandon in the house with us this week as we keep up on all things sports. We've got a lot to get to in the next 3 hours of the radio broadcast. I got some NFL to get into, including coming up later in this hour of the show. my surprise teams from 2024. Yesterday, I gave you the list of teams that I think may disappoint some people this year. I gave you a list of teams that I do not think, or I should rephrase that. I gave you a list of teams that I would not be shocked if they do not reach the expectations this year. Coming up in this hour of the show, I will give you my list of teams that I think may surpass their expectations this year based on the off seasons that they have had so far. We'll get to that coming up in a little while. We will get to in the next segment of the show. There is a rumor going around that the Big 12 may actually be in play for the ACC crown jewels. If and when that conference breaks up, splits up, could the Big 12 make a move that the SEC and the Big 10 seem hesitant to make right now that would shift the conference landscape? I'm going to get to that coming up here in just a little while. All of that and more coming down the pipe. But before we get to any of that, it is 7:04 in the morning. You've got just a touch over 55 minutes until you've got to clock in and lock in for your Friday shift. Don't worry, kids. 8 hours after you do, it's all over. 8 hours after you do, we're headed to the weekend. But I do know that some of us on Fridays get a little touch of the weekenditis. Some of us on the Fridays get a little touch of the senioritis. That, who cares about Friday, right? We're just working for the weekend. Which means you're going to take multiple breaks today. And you've earned them. Don't let anybody tell you different. You've earned that break in which you're going to walk down the hall. You're going to grab, I don't know, who are we going to talk to today? Let's talk to Ken from accounting. Accountants, all due respect to accountants. Accountants have kind of a reputation of being a little boring, right? They just do. It is what it is. Not Ken. Ken's a cool guy. We all like Ken. Everybody likes Ken. Ken brings the party. That's why you like talking sports with Ken. And when you talk to Ken, when you talk sports with Ken, you don't want to sound like a fool. You don't want to sound like a clown. You don't want to sound uninformed. You want to sound like you know what you're talking about. That's why you need this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworker saying,
You hear that?
even before they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the water cooler cheat sheet on the Fan Upstate.
It's the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories that you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports this lovely Friday morning. When you do, and you meet up with Ken, and Ken goes, did you hear about blank? What do you think about blank? You're going to be able to look Ken in the face and go, I sure do, because I know ball, because I listen to the Rob Brown Show, and he does the water cooler cheat sheet. So let us dive right in with item number 1. The Atlanta Braves went out to Arizona to take on the reigning, defending, undisputed National League champions from last year, the Arizona Diamondbacks. It started very, very well. It started off with a bang. The Bravos went 2-0 to start this series on the road at the Los Serpientes, but they would end the series with a split series, 2-2, after a 1-0 loss last night on the road. Max Fried was tagged with his 5th loss of the season, 7-5 now, gave up just 5 hits scattered across 6 innings while K'ing 7. The problem is that one of those hits ended up being a solo shot from Eugenio Suarez. That home run came in the 5th inning. That home run would be the only run that was scored on the night. The undercash is easy in this one, a 1-0 win for the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks managed just 6 hits, but the Braves managed just 5. Austin Riley had a couple. Marcelo Zuna had a couple. Orlando Arcia had 1 in his 2 at-bats before he was pinch hit for by Travis d'Arnaud. This is the inconsistency that we have really been talking about for Atlanta all season long. They go out to Arizona. They fight for their lives to get an extra innings win in game number 1. Game number 2, they rack up, 13 hits in games 2. The bats come alive. They start moving around the bases a little bit, and you think, here we go. We're alive. We're in a spot. Could be good. Then they turn around in the last 2 games, and they get, 6 hits and then 5 hits last night. Then we turn around, can't score, get shut out. And on top of that, the one thing that nobody is talking about right now, when Spencer Strider went down, we all said it's going to be Max Fried who picks up the slack if Atlanta's going to accomplish anything this year. We all said it's going to be Max Fried who is going to be the guy to go to the bump and save the season for the Atlanta Braves. In fairness, last night was not a Max Fried problem. Max Fried gave up all run to an offense that has Ketel Marte on it, to an offense that has Christian Walker on it, to an offense that has Corbin Carroll on it, even if it is a bad year for Corbin Carroll. My man gave up 1 run. He gave up 1 solo shot. Max Fried deserved to win that game. Instead, he gets tagged with his fifth loss. A lot of what's happened, all of what's happening in Atlanta right now, comes down to the fact that the Bravos just cannot figure out a way to keep this offense rolling. This team just cannot figure out a way to stay hot at the dish. It is one of the most hot and cold teams I've ever rooted for, I've ever seen. It's wildly frustrating at this point. It strikes again last night. The win ultimately ended up being attached to Brandon Pfaadt, my favorite baseball name in all of baseball names. He's now 4-8. Not great, Bob. Not great. If you can't put the bat on the baseball, you can't win playing baseball. It's real simple. Jarred Kelenic, who had gotten a little hot there for a minute, 0 for 3. Ozzie Albies, 0 for 4. Matt Olson, 0 for 4. By the way, is Matt Olson having the most disappointing season of anybody in the league that's not Corbin Carroll right now? Is there anybody right now that is more disappointing than the man who led the league in home runs and ribbies last year, who this year can't do it at all? A guy that led the league in home runs and RBIs last year, who's batting .234 this year. A man who led the MLB in home runs and ribbies last year, but is leading the league in one category this year, and that is number of strikeouts. It's rough, man. It's rough. Bravos fans missing Freddie Freeman something big right now. Item number 2 on the water cooler cheat sheet, former NFL defensive coordinator turned Ole Miss defensive analyst Monty Kiffin, passing away at 84 years of age, spent more than 50 years coaching in the NFL and collegiate ranks, coached right up to the end, defensive analyst for the Ole Miss Runnin' Rebels under his son Lane at Ole Miss, had been a defensive analyst for the team since 2020. Kiffin spent 13 seasons as defensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers alongside Tony Dungy. You will remember not just the winning of the 2002 Super Bowl under Tony Dungy, a year in which the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, despite being a conference rival, a divisional rival of my New Orleans Saints, put together a defense that, man, it was fun to watch them play. What a damn defense that team put together. And that had to do with Monty Kiffin establishing that Tampa 2 defense. Hey, do you know what you got to do in a league that is full of big, smart boys at the coordinator positions, at the head coach positions? Do you know what you got to do in the year 2000s to innovate a defense that you are known as the innovator of, right? The Tampa 2 defense did something that a lot of other defenses didn't do. It was a 4-3 defense with a 2-high safety set and a 2 cornerback set. It's pretty standard. The difference was it utilized the middle linebacker as less of a run gap and less of an eye and more of a pass defender, a bona fide pass defender. That middle linebacker was responsible for the middle of the field, but also usually for dropping back a little bit further than just the middle of the field and basically allowing more freedom from the safeties to work a little bit more to the outside if they need to. And when the Tampa 2 was at its peak and was relatively new to the game, it confused the hell out of quarterbacks, man. Because all of a sudden it wasn't, all right, let's get a look at the safety. Let's read the hips and the eyes of the safety and no, all of a sudden now you're looking at the safety and there's a middle linebacker right under your main field of view who is in play. Whereas in years gone by, they may have been in play, but it was more a special play when they were in play as opposed to just kind of how that defense worked. Monty Kiffin, a legend of the game, and the only assistant coach to have his name on the Ring of Honor there in Tampa, passing away yesterday at 84 years of age. Let's get to item number 3. This, for most pitchers, this absolutely would not be a water cooler cheat sheet item. It may or may not even be a topic of conversation that we bring up on the show. But for Paul Skeens, it is. Paul Skeens yesterday throws 99 pitches through 7 innings and was working a no-hitter. Paul Skeens threw 99 pitches, working a no-hitter into the 7th inning yesterday. And then the Pirates made the decision to yank my guy. Then the Pirates made the decision to call off the quest for the no-no for the Rook. Why? Because he was at 99 pitches through 7 innings, guys. I know it stinks. I know we wanted history. I know no-nos are fun. I know they're engaging. I know they're special. And I know that for a Rook to go out there and get one, it would have been a big moment. I know for a Rook like Paul Skeens to go out there and get one, it would have been huge. But you can't. You can't do it right there. If Paul Skeens had 99 pitches through the bottom of the 8th inning, then I think there's probably a chance I send him out there to try to let him finish the job. With the understanding of you're on a pitch count for the last 2, bud. Like, if you don't get out of the 8th in less than 111 pitches, you're cooked. But through the 7th inning, with 6 batters to go, realistically speaking, Paul Skeens is a strikeout artist. He had 11 Ks through 7 innings. He's a strikeout artist. He's not a guy that's going to induce a lot of ground balls, not a guy that's going to induce a lot of flyouts. He's a dude that is either going to get Ks or he's going to give up long drives to the outfield, some that crest the fence. Here's what I also know. The Pirates are alive in the wild card race right now. They are alive in the wild card race because of Paul Skeens. Well, partially because of Paul Skeens. Also partially because they have built a very good young core of players in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If Paul Skeens goes down, so do the Pirates. They're not sticking around without Paul Skeens. So what's more important? Sending my guy out there, needing 6 more outs at 99 pitches to try to get a beauty pageant award of a no-no, or allowing my dude the time to make sure the arm is right, allowing my dude the opportunity to keep the arm fresh, or at least as fresh as it can be in that spot, and keeping him ready to go for the rest of this run where you are trying to make a play at a wild card spot. What's more important? The answer is trying to win. Trying to win. It stinks. I would love to see Paul Skeens have gotten the no-no. I hope he gets one before the end of the year to make up for this. But a Rook on 99 pitches throwing 100 miles an hour every time he throws the baseball. 99 pitches is too many in 7 innings. 8 innings? Sure. Going out for the bottom of the 9th with 99 pitches? Okay, good luck. Good luck. Go get it. I hope you get it. That's history. It was the 7th inning, dudes. 7th inning. He needed 6 more outs. You're looking at a absolute bare minimum of like minimum 18 more pitches to get through it. Because at this point, Paul Skeens wasn't going out there to throw an immaculate inning. It just wasn't, right? Like he wasn't. He wasn't going out there and inducing 2 ground balls and having an 8-pitch inning. Dude was going to take 20 pitches, 15 to 20 pitches to get through the 8th, and then he still got 3 more to go. I cannot run the risk that my man pops his UCL because he's overdoing it, trying to catch the no-no to make rookie history. I can't do it. I can't risk it. So I know it stinks. I know we wanted it. I know it would have been fun. I know it would have been something we talked about today. But, man, the Pirates aren't dead. The Pirates are alive. They're alive because of Paul Skeens. They will die without Paul Skeens. It was the right call. It hurts. It stings. I wanted to see it. It was the right call. All right. We got a lot to get to when we come back here in just a minute. Quick update on the quest for a new manager for U.S. Soccer. I will run through what we learned yesterday very quickly, short segment, and then to wrap up this hour. There was a report going around yesterday that the Big 12 has plans to make a play for Clemson, for Florida State, for Miami, for North Carolina, for the ACC squads that we know are looking to get out of that conference. What could they offer that would get the SEC and the Big Ten out of the race for those schools? And would Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina and Miami, would they plan on it? Would they be willing to go that direction? We'll find out. We'll talk about it coming up at the end of this hour on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, live reading, then I'm coming back. Stay right there for me. Come join us in the live stream, facebook.com/thefanupstate, twitter.com/thefanupstate. The Fan Upstate on YouTube, the Rob Brown Show on YouTube, or the Rob Brown Show on Twitch. All the different ways for you to watch the live stream this morning. You can leave your chat on any one of those outlets, and it will show up on our live stream chat. We got William up in the chat right now. He said, Rob says back in the day, because, you know, we're old now, pushing 40. Yeah, I'm all up on it. I don't like it at all. Trey Davis is up in there. Trey says, y'all going to get the college football game. Yeah, I am. I'm absolutely buying it. I've been looking forward to this game for like 11 years now. It's finally here. It's finally here. It's finally here, except for it's only on the next-gen console. And this is where sports and the gaming nerd in me end up crossing into each other. Rob Brown is for those of you that have not heard the show. I know I talk about this a lot, but what do you want? I'm an open book. I'm me to you guys. All right. I'm just me. Getting married in September. Turns out, who knew, getting married is expensive. All right. It's a expensive proposition. So we're saving up the money right now because we've still got, I got to buy a suit. We got to book the rehearsal dinner. We got to pay for the photographer. We got to pay for the caterer. Because if Rob's throwing a party, we're not half-assing a party. All right. We're throwing a party. And so if I got to throw a party, we're going to pay for the party. So I have got to make sure everything for the wedding is taken care of before I can move on to the next-gen console. So I will acknowledge that should my fiance ever doubt if I love her or not, and she doesn't, but should she? Here's all she needs to know. I'm not buying a next-gen console next week in order to buy the college football video game because we have a wedding to pay for. That is my priority right now, all right? So if ladies, if you've ever questioned if your man loves you, just ask him, would you put off buying the new college football video game for 3 months for me? And if the answer to that question is yes, he loves you, okay? He loves you. Texter said, Rob, took Paul Skeens 6 pitches to get through the seventh inning. You are correct. But statistically speaking, it's not going to happen that way again. It took Paul Skeens 14 pitches to get through the first inning. It took Paul Skeens 12, 14, 19. Oh, God, it took Paul Skeens like 30 pitches to get through the second inning. It took Paul Skeens 6, 12, 22 pitches to get through the third inning. It took Paul Skeens 10 to get through the fourth. It took him 13 to get through the fifth. To get through the sixth, it only took him 7. To get through the seventh, it only took him 7. So Paul Skeens averaging in the ballpark of about 15 pitches per inning. So let's say average. Right? Let's say average. Let's say it takes him, I'll give you lower than average. Let's say it takes him only 11 pitches to get through the next 2 innings. You're looking at adding 22 pitches to a man that's a rookie and throws 100 miles an hour. It's just, I get it, but the odds he goes 6 pitches the next 2 times through, not great. Just in this game alone, he had an inning up over 21 pitches. Most of his innings were closer to 15 than they were 6. So let's say 12. I will even go below the average. Let's say 12. You're still looking at what? 24 more pitches to get through 6 more outs, right? I can't risk a rookie for a beauty pageant title. That's all I'm saying. Texter said you don't have next gen in 2024. I don't, and let me tell you why. Aside from the fact that, again, they are expensive. The reason I don't is because up until this year, most everything that I have wanted to play up until this year has been cross-gen, right? If you can play it on Xbox S or X or whatever series we're on now, I can play it on one. And while I am a gamer nerd, while I do like my Vidya games, the reality is I spend my money on doing stuff. I spend my money on trips and travel. I spend my money on tickets to sporting events. I spend my money on doing things. And so ordinarily, there's usually not a point where the lady friend and I don't have the next trip lined up that we're saving up for. Because like I said about my party earlier, if she and I are going down to the Caribbean for a week, I'm going somewhere that it's unlimited drinks, all right? And I'm paying good money for it. So it's really just an economic thing. That being said, now that the games that I want to play, Baldur's Gate 3, I'm sure the next Call of Duty, College Football 25, now that all these games are no longer cross-gen, now I have to upgrade. Now I have to upgrade. So it's coming down the pipe. It's coming down the pipe. I would expect that by the time the college football regular season starts up at the end of August, by then I will be on the next gen and I will be playing college football. By then I should be good to go. I should be lined up at that point. So we'll see. We'll see when we get there. Quick update on the United States men's national team searching for a new head coach after relieving Greg Berhalter of his responsibilities on Wednesday. Here's what we learned yesterday. We learned yesterday that the team did indeed reach out to Jurgen Klopp, the very famous German manager of Liverpool for many years, spent 15 years in the game and decided he wants a year off. USMNT reached out to him anyway, and Jurgen Klopp did say that he is going to be committed to his 12-month break from managing football. Klopp left Liverpool 2 months ago, citing burnout, and said he, quote, probably will not be a manager again. U.S. Soccer did reach out there, though it would be very interesting. Greg Berhalter was making $1.6 million per year as the manager. At Liverpool, Klopp was making $20 million annually. Money a big factor, not the main factor, but basically Klopp just said, I'm kind of done. Here are the other names that we know right now the Americans are either interested in or are being pushed to be interested in. Zinedine Zidane, the famous Frenchman, legendary player who transitioned into managing. He left Real Madrid in 2021 and has been idle since then. He reportedly rejected an approach from U.S. Soccer back in 2023. Then Sporting Director Ernie Stewart said they never actually moved towards Zinedine Zidane. But I'm going to say that's probably a no. Mauricio Pochettino is a free agent right now. He is available, having been dismissed by Chelsea in May after just one season. Not a home run hire, though, is Mauricio. Had an opportunity at Chelsea, a place that basically has unlimited resources, and it really hasn't worked out. International management, also a lot different than your traditional club management. Thomas Tuchel is another home run hire that the Americans are largely looking at, a widely respected tactician that, I don't know. Tuchel already has experience because he mismanaged Christian Pulisic at Chelsea. He is not a player's coach. And while I have said, I don't care about getting a player's coach, I don't care about having a guy in the fold that the boys in the dressing room care about. I care about a guy who can get the most out of the boys in the dressing room. I think there is a difference between having a guy that the boys in the dressing room like versus actively dislike, or like versus don't like but respect. Thomas Tuchel has already come across Christian Pulisic. That relationship went really sour really quickly. If you can't get your cap to buy in, I don't know how you're going to get the rest of the team to buy in. So I don't think Thomas Tuchel is a realistic choice. Hervé Renard is the captain or the manager of the French women's national team. I do think this is a name you are going to hear. He has already said he's leaving the French women's team after the upcoming Olympics because he wants to return to men's soccer, and he does want to coach at the 2026 World Cup. He does have an interesting resume. He led both Zambia and the Ivory Coast to the Africa Cup of Nations title. He then took Morocco and Saudi Arabia to the 2018 and 22 Men's World Cups, respectively. Each of them outperformed their group. The only problem you have here is that Renard's not really a player development kind of guy, and I think that is one of the things that we have been missing from Greg Berhalter. Joachim Low is a free agent, has not coached since his 15-year run with the Germans men's national team, did win a World Cup title there, but it kind of tanked off after that. Does want to coach in the 2026 Men's World Cup. Maybe this entices him. Marcelo Gallardo is an Argentine manager who for a hot minute there kind of seemed like he was the next big thing in coaching. Instead, he went to Saudi Arabia, got sacked after 7 months. That tenure did not work out, question mark. Was it because the team wasn't good or was it because he wasn't good? I don't know where he fits in. So there's a couple of the names. There is one other name I'm intrigued by. Thierry Henry. Thierry Henry, a French Olympic coach. He has reportedly been keen on the USMNT job in the past. Apparently, he struck up a conversation with the USSF before they rehired Greg Berhalter a while back. Has only had 2 senior head coaching gigs at Monaco and Montreal. Both of them have gone very poorly, but he is a guy the boys in the locker room, again, would respect. So those are some of the names that are in the mix right now. No idea if any of them will end up coming to fruition, but that is your update as it stands right now. Let us take a break. When we come back here in just a minute, the Big 12 is rumored, as Brett Yormark, their commissioner, said at their media days a couple of days ago, they are open for business. They got to be. The Big 12, much like the ACC, is fighting for survival, although under a different set of circumstances than the ACC. So could the Big 12 take advantage of that? Could Clemson and Florida State end up heading to the Big 12, not the Big 10 or the SEC? There is one thing that makes it a potentially alluring scenario, and I'll tell you what that is when we come back on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Morning, Steven. Morning, Adam. I promise you, I'm going to get out to a show at some point. Like, it's just going to happen. So there's a lot to this. The Big 12 Media Days are taking place right now. Well, wrapping up right now out in Utah. There's been a lot of stories out of it. We have heard some of the comments of Deion Sanders, head coach of Colorado. I'd like to talk about him later on in the radio broadcast, but it was back on day one, the comments from Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark that kind of kicked a lot of conversations in gear. My man basically said, hey, look, we're open for business. There's more expansion to be had, and we'd like to be at the forefront of that. Which, yes, it makes sense. The Big Ten can afford to stand pat right now. The Southeastern Conference can afford to stand pat right now. The Big 12 can't. The Big 12 needs to be operating. They need to be working. They need to be trying to get something going right now. And they need to be trying to get something going right now so that they can, continue to exist. I think it's pretty much a guarantee at this point. I think it's pretty solidly assured at this point that eventually the EEC, the Everybody Else Conference, is going to be the Big 12. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting. Where it gets kind of interesting is that live from Big 12 Media Days, there's a radio show host by the name of Greg Swain. Now, Greg Swain is a cat that has been around for a very long time, and he's worked for a lot of different outlets, although right now he's kind of doing his own thing. So you're welcome to take this with a big grain of salt. In fact, I would suggest you take it with the whole shaker of salt to keep it a buck. But Greg Swain sent out a tweet yesterday that a lot of people have been responding to. And it said, quote, breaking. According to multiple sources tonight who cover conference realignment, back channel conversations have all but ceased between the SEC and Big Ten conferences with FSU and Clemson. However, talks with the Big 12 have intensified. Don't be shocked if ESPN and Fox Sports are pulling those strings to make it happen. Now, I don't know what happens. My initial gut check reaction was this. Why? These lawsuits, and we do have a lawsuit update, by the way. I will go down to the car during the break and get the blenders so that we can do a little Law and Order Pickens County coming up here in the next segment. But The knee-jerk reaction that I had here was, why would Clemson and Florida State spend millions of dollars going through these lawsuits, place themselves in a very, very interesting predicament legally, to then go join a subpar power conference? Now, can make the argument that the Big 12 is not subpar right now, to the ACC. And I think that is fair. Here's what this is being based on. The Big 10 is not going to make an offer to the Clemson, the Florida State, the Miami schools because they are not AAU certified. And the Big 10 would like to invite schools that are AAU certified. That is an academic certification. It is also something that has kind of become fair or not, smart or not, subjective. That has kind of become a part of what the Big Ten's identity is, right? Like we got great football, but we've also got these big-time accredited universities and institutions as part of the fold. And so the thought would be that North Carolina, who is AAU certified, Virginia, Duke, all AAU certified, those would be schools that the Big Ten would be pushing for. Does it matter? I don't know. Would that be a reason for the Big Ten to grab those instead of Clemson or Florida State? It seems like it for the Big Ten. Does it make sense? Again, I don't know. I don't know if those schools genuinely add value to that conference the way that scratch that. We know they don't add value to the conference the way that Clemson and Florida State would. They don't add no value, but not as much value. What I am very interested in is does this move make sense? Does this move make sense for Clemson and Florida State to end up in the Big 12? Does it make sense for these two schools that we all have kind of been working on the assumption that they would end up, they are both two of the remaining crown jewels on the table. I'm looking at this whole thing. You know how in Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, for those of you that have watched those shows, you know how anytime there's a war going on, there's always some scene somewhere. There's always some scene somewhere where the king that's in charge of the war is standing around that big war table with all his small council or his war council. And there's all the little pieces on the board. And like, there's this piece over here and that's this army. And then there's like this army and it's a bigger piece. And then over there's like the dragon piece, like this dragon's roosted here. All right, so we're going to move. That's kind of what this vibe is right now. Right? It's kind of like there's a war table in the office of Brett Yormark of the Big 12. There's a war table in the office of Greg Sankey, the SEC. There's a war table in the office of Tony Petitti with the Big 10. There's a war table on the office of all the schools' ADs, and they're all kind of sitting there like trying to predict what everybody else is going to do. Here's why this move is very interesting. Because I think we all thought that if you, like a year ago, if I said Florida State and Clemson were both going to be fighting major legal battles in their respective states in order to get out of the ACC, I think the response from all of us would have been, well, then where are they ending up, the Big Ten or the SEC, right? Like that would have been the very fair assumption. But what's interesting here is that we are starting to hear, and again, all of this is rumor and conjecture and speculation because nobody in these big entities is going to actually come out and say, yeah, we're not interested or we're making a play for. They're not going to say it because step one when it comes to negotiations is what? Don't show your hand. Never show your hand. Never let them know what you have to give or what you don't have to not give. Never do it. So nobody's going to come out and say it. So a lot of what we are dealing with is conjecture, is speculation right now. So if you're the Big 12, you're fighting for your life right now. You're fighting for survival. You'd know that you have done something right now that other conferences have not done. Whether or not they will or won't down the line, I don't know. But remember, the Big 12 has said one thing. The Big 12 has said, we're open to outside private investment in the conference, not in the schools, in the conference, which is why, if you've been listening to this show, Lonzo and I have been making jokes about the Big 12 where I call it everything but the Big 12. We call it the Geico 12, the Allstate 12, the Walmart 12, the Denny's 12, the Waffle House 12, the QT 12, the Buc-ee's 12, the Chicken Salad Chick 12, right? Because while it kind of feels corporatized and grossed, at the end of the day, the only thing that is going to prevent any of these conferences from doing anything is it doesn't make them enough profit. Selling off the outright total naming rights to a conference would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars to a conference, right? You know what? Do you know why there's 90 bowl games? You know why there's 90 bowl? Do you think it's because college football fans are clamoring for 90 bowl games? No. It's because there are businesses out there that are willing to pay a lot of money to put their name on the front of the Bahamas Bowl. Quick question. Who played in the Bahamas Bowl last year? Not a damn one of you know. Who played in the Poinsettia Bowl last year? None of you know. Who played in the Military Bowl? Who played in the Pinstripe Bowl? Who played in any of these bowls? None of you know. Who played? Here's a fun one. Who played in the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl last year? Anybody know? Brandon, do you know who played in the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl last year?
I want to tell you the truth. I was just Googling it because I don't remember.
Yeah, because there wasn't one. You don't even know. All right, that's my point. And I'm sorry I put you on the spot for that, but I needed you to represent the listening audience at large. They haven't played the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl since 2013.
As you see, I was shaking my head too.
Yeah. So the point here is there's only that many games because people are willing to pay for those games. That's why. That's why those games exist, right? It is the exact same with naming rights and this and putting corporate logos on the field. It's going to happen because people are willing to pay for it. And if the Big 12 does find that sponsor, and if they can up that, do I think that the Big 12 is going to be able to pay Clemson and Florida State and Miami and North Carolina or whatever in order for them to get there? No, I do not. But I think if they add all of those schools, if they are able to get 4, 5, 6 of the ACC schools to come over and they get that privatized sponsorship, guess what? Now all of a sudden the Big 12, it ain't the SEC, it ain't the Big 10, but it's a hell of a lot better than what it is right now, and it's a hell of a lot better than what the ACC is right now. So they are going to get some more money. And while FSU and Clemson may not get the money that they would get if they go to the Big 10 or the Southeastern Conference, they'll make double what they're making minimum. They'll make double what they're making in the ACC. And here's the fun part. You can't go to the dance if nobody invites you. If the Big 10, and again, this is all speculation, but if the Big 10 truly has decided against inviting Florida State and Clemson because they're not AAU certified, and the Big 10 have their nose way up in the air and they're snobbish academics, if they're not inviting you, don't matter if you want to go to the Big 10 or not. And if you're not invited to the Big 10 and the Southeastern Conference doesn't invite you either, staying in the ACC isn't tenable. Moving to the Big 12 is. So really, to me, it kind of feels like the whole thing hinges on the Southeastern Conference. And let's call a spade here. If Clemson's hanging out there in an SEC market, because they are, the upstate of South Carolina has already got a footprint with the SEC in South Carolina. So South Carolina, you know for a fact, they're going to say no to inviting Clemson into the Southeastern Conference. Would that stop Greg Sankey? I don't know. But my question is, does Clemson bring that much market value to a market that it's already an SEC market? It's also an ACC market, but do they bring the value? I don't know. Does Florida State, who is already in an SEC market, Florida State's wedged down there between Gainesville, Athens, Baton Rouge, Auburn, Opelika, Tuscaloosa. It's wedged in there. Does Florida State add any value to the SEC? I don't know is the answer. There is only one conference that those two, outside of the ACC, there is only one conference that those two schools definitively add value to, the Big 12. So if the Big 12 gets that private branding and they get an extra $500 million a year to become the Geico 12, and they get that money, and that gets split and added to the conference total, and Clemson doesn't catch the invite to the Big Ten, Florida State doesn't catch the invite to the Big Ten, now their value drops to the SEC. Where's that line where their valuation to the SEC doesn't justify, pardon me, terrible timing, catching the invite? And if they don't catch the invite, the Big 12, that's all that's left. That's all that's left is the Big 12 at that point. So while I am going to say, listen, this is one radio show host. This is one dude. Yeah, he's got some clout. Yeah, he's got some following. It's one dude, so it is speculation. It is conjecture. I am going to say the path he's gone down, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, it kind of feels like there might be a little bit of merit to it. It's at least worth the conversation, I think. So, Clemson fans, is this news to you? Do you think this is even realistic, or is this just some dude with a microphone? Shane said, did you just sneeze and hit puberty at the same time? No. Rob Brown had a health protein bar for breakfast, and there's like one little chunk of oat that's like sitting back here that I haven't been able to shake. And it attacked, and it won. Sports Flash. Pittsburgh Pirates rookie Paul Skeens joined Nolan Ryan as the only two pitchers in Major League Baseball history with multiple starts of 11 strikeouts and no hits in one season. Skeens threw 7 innings of no-hit baseball before the Pirates pulled him with a pitch count of 99. Yasmani Grandal drove in Jack Sawinski for the lone run of the game in the 1-0 Pirates win. The U.S. men's soccer team approached legendary Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp about filling the seat vacated by Greg Berhalter, but reports are that the German will not accept the job. U.S. Sporting Director Matt Crocker said the Federation is searching, that it could take until September to find the next gaffer. And the double-double streak of Chicago Sky forward Angel Reese is still alive despite a 91-76 loss to the Liberty last night. Reese just crossed the mark with 10 points and 10 rebounds, bringing her run of consecutive double-double games to 15. Tune in this afternoon from 3 to 7 for our brand new local show, Wire to Wire, with Cole Bryson and Diesel, 3 to 7 right here on the Fan Upstate. Oh, I nailed the hell out of that one.
Thinner.
Striped. All right, guys, be right back. Stay right there.
a graphic designer who takes like negative comments about national parks and makes like promotional posters out of them. Brilliant.
There's one more I'll show you later. It's good stuff. Here we go. Hour number 3 of the Rob Brown Radio program. Just a pair of hours left in the week. So if you want in, you need to get in right now. 844-326-3663. That is the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. 844-326-3663. The text line is open. 71307. 71307. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N, FAN, F-A-N. And you can read them on the show. You can also join us on our live stream. Facebook.com/TheFanUpstate, Twitter.com/TheFanUpstate, The Fan Upstate on YouTube, The Fan Upstate, or The Rob Brown Show on YouTube, or The Rob Brown Show on Twitch. All the different ways for you to get in touch with the show. Let's keep this conversation going for just a minute about you guys know that I do not go hard in the paint on stories that are based on hashtag sources. In fact, as some of you know, I have even gotten into headbutting competitions, metaphorically speaking, with coworkers of mine that have taken off and run with stories that are based around sources. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that. All right. I don't like diving headfirst deep into conversations that are based around sources because, and this is true, it is something I have learned after 17 years in this industry. Sometimes people lie on the radio to get attention. I know. Shocking.
Dun, dun,
I can just do that. No, that's not right. There it is. Sure, why not? What the hell? It's Friday. Who cares? Sometimes people lie on the radio to get attention. Sometimes people lie on the radio so that their name trends on Twitter. Sometimes people lie on the radio so that they get their name said on ESPN. Sometimes people lie on the radio, and I have more respect for all of you than that. Okay? All right? I have more respect than to make up a story to get people in a tizzy on the radio. But I will say that this, to me, is less about, are these stories actually happening? And more about asking, is there a viable, legitimate, realistic possibility here? And I think the answer is yes. Now it does. There is a hinge here. There is a hinge here that we have to talk about. And the hinge here is whether or not it is true that the Big Ten would not invite Clemson and Florida State, North Carolina, Miami, etc. Whether or not they would not invite those schools for whatever reason. It could be because they're not AAU accredited. Again, I don't know how deadly serious the Big Ten is about that. It could be, and again, this one I fully acknowledge is a conspiracy theory. Not all conspiracy theories turn out to be bad, but a lot of them do. It is a conspiracy theory. Do you remember a story that we brought to you a couple of, I guess about a week and a half ago? We brought you a story where Clemson had a request submitted to them from the ACC and ESPN. The submitted request sent to Clemson was to move their home game against South Carolina from Saturday to Friday night, to Black Friday night. And in a request to do this, it was said that Clemson would get some concessions from ESPN. We're not going to go down the whole list, but ESPN was going to give Clemson a bunch of stuff in return for moving the South Carolina game from Saturday to Good Friday night. You will remember that despite the concessions, Clemson said, you can kiss my to ESPN and the ACC. And as I pointed out at the time that this happened, of course they did. Of course they did. Of course they did, because genuinely, why would they do that? Why would they willingly move a game that's a big money getter? Why would they willingly move a game from Saturday to Friday to benefit the entity, the ACC, that they are currently involved in lawsuits with? Why would they move the game from Saturday to Friday and make life tougher on their fans? Why would they move game from Saturday to Friday to benefit ESPN, an entity that, while you may or may not believe this, I do, an entity that, by and large, doesn't really care about the ACC, right? Or at least they do not care about the ACC as much as they care about the SEC. I think that's pretty obvious. Why would Clemson do that? So here is my question. My question is, if you are the Southeastern Conference, who pulls your strings right now? ESPN. That's your television revenue. And television revenue is the number one thing in college football right now. Just like the NFL. Nothing matters except television revenue. Everything else is secondary. Corporate money, secondary to television revenue. School revenue, secondary to ESPN revenue or Fox revenue if you're the Big Ten. Nothing else matters. So if these schools have basically said, yo, the ESPN folks and the Fox Sports folks can go themselves, which Clemson did, conspiracy theory says it would make sense that the ESPN folks would then tell the SEC folks, yeah, you're not bringing them here. They won't work with us. They're openly hostile to us. They are fighting us. We're not bringing them into the fold. And if the Big Ten doesn't want them because they're not AAU accredited, and the Southeastern Conference doesn't want them for whatever reason they may not want them, there's nowhere else to go for this school except the Big 12, who has now got not just the TV revenue. It's not great TV revenue. It's not TV revenue like ESPN's providing the SEC. It's not TV revenue like Fox Sports is providing the Big Ten, but it is still double the revenue that the ACC is providing to this school. If that's the only landing spot they've got, then it makes sense that they would go there. I'm not saying that is what is happening. I'm not saying that is what is going to happen. I'm not even saying that right now that's in the cards. What I'm saying is this whole scenario, speculative or not, it makes sense in a makes me kind of uncomfortable kind of way. This whole scenario makes sense as a, let me double bold, emphasize, underline, italicize, as a hypothetical. It makes sense that these two schools could theoretically end up in the Big 12, not the Big 10, and not the SEC.
We know money talks anywhere. And yes, it's not as much as Big Brother SEC and Big Brother Big Big Ten have, but money's going to talk. And, ACC, they're not bending and they're not folding on this grant of rights. But if Clemson and Florida State figure out, and they say they have a way to get around it, if they figure out how to get out of this grant of rights, I think the Big 12 is knocking and it's coming fast.
So it's yes, money talks. Like that's I say this lovingly. Yeah, like that's the truest thing ever. That's the most obvious thing ever, right? Like, and this is what I've been, and a lot of people have disliked me for this in the past, and that's okay. College football's special. I've never once argued that college football isn't special. It's a very special sport. And certainly in our region of the country, it's a very special sport. It's a very important sport to all of us. However, it is special for a lot of reasons. It is not unique. It is not unique. I think the whole conversation, this is why when the NIL thing started, this is why I got driven batty by y'all. Because it was, it's never been about the money. It's only ever been about the money. That's all it's ever been about is the money. It's just that in order to not give that money to another entity, the players in this case, the wag the dog moments from those in power in college football, they always said to you it's not about the money. Because if they can convince you it's not about the money, that when players come and they go, we would like some of the money, you don't mind taking the moral high horse and looking at the players and going, it's not about the money. It's only ever about the money. If people who have millions and billions of dollars tell you it's not about the money, they're lying to you. It's all it is about, right? And that means that for conferences, it is true. For teams at school, for schools, it's true. For players, it's true. For coaches, it's true. Why do you think coaches are watching their salaries go up more and more all the time? Because they're doing it for money. Do you think the conference, has there ever been a conference president who took over a Power 5 conference and said, I'll do it for free because it's not about the money. It's about the passion and love for college football. No, they make millions of dollars. It's about the money. It's always been about the money. So if the Big Ten, because while it is about the money, the Big Ten's got a lot. And the Big Ten feels like there is some level of, I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying this is the smoke on the breeze right now. And it is worth the conversation, even if it turns out to be not true. This is not a sources are making up, this is what is happening. This is here's part of the narrative overall. The Big Ten has made it clear that they want AAU accredited universities. They want the highest level academic institutions. Somebody a few minutes ago said, Rob, Nebraska's not. Yes, Nebraska was AAU accredited when they joined the Big Ten. They've lost it, but they were accredited. The schools in question from the ACC, the public schools in question in the ACC that are up for grabs. If they're AAU accredited, they'll be considered. If they're not, they won't. That's what's floating on the breeze right now. Florida State and Clemson are not. So if this truly is, if that is truly a deal breaker for the Big Ten, they're out. Which also means that the SEC doesn't really need to compete for these schools. If they want them, they can take them. If they don't, they don't. But FSU and its fans right now have been telling the SEC where they can stick it since they got screwed out of the play, since they were not selected to play in the playoffs last year. Clemson, like I said, do you think South Carolina wants Clemson in the SEC? Do you think Georgia, right? Everybody's focused on South Carolina. Y'all, Athens is what? An hour and a half away from Clemson? You think Georgia wants Clemson in the ACC? Do you think Georgia wants Clemson to have SEC money to put into its recruiting in their backyard? No, of course not. And you add all of that onto the fact that not but a week and a half ago, the big money makers The big money makers for the SEC, that is ESPN. They came to Clemson and they said, hello, we would like you to do us a solid. We'd like you to do us a fave. Do you mind? And Clemson said, yeah, no. Nah. I'll tell you exactly where you can stick that request, ESPN and ACC. Now, again, sometimes you got to shake a hand with somebody who screwed you over because it's in your financial or emotional or whatever best interest. But this was a week and a half ago. So if ESPN knows the Big Ten's not taking Clemson or Florida State, and Florida State's out here disparaging ESPN, and Clemson's out here telling ESPN where they can shove it because they're not doing them any favors right now, whether or not it's to get at the ACC. And those two conferences both realize the other doesn't want the school, and they don't think they're going to add all that much value. And that's been the discussion, right? What value do these schools add to which of these two power conferences? If these two conferences says we don't want these two schools, and these two schools must leave the ACC, there is only one more option. It is the Big 12, because the Big 12 pays a lot more money than the ACC will. And if the Big 12 is willing to pay that much more money than the ACC, it is definitely the only landing spot. Texter said the Big 12 is the all cupcakes conference reincarnated. I don't disagree. You know what the Big 12 becomes? The Big 12 becomes meat quality with quantity, right? Like, we can't keep up with the top of the SEC or the top of the Big 10, but we can damn sure provide a lot of good teams into the mix, right? The SEC and the Big 10 are always going to have their top 3, maybe 4 teams get into the 12-team playoff. Eventual 16-team playoff. It's going to happen. Prepare yourselves. They're always going to get their top 3 or 4, maybe 5 teams in. So how does the Big 12 counter that? Get like 24 teams up in this Bia. And let's just hope that by having 24 teams, we end up with 4 that are good enough to go to the college football playoff. And that's how we'll compete. And you got a real good shot at that if you get a Florida State in the mix. You get a Clemson in the mix. You get a Miami in the mix. You get a North Carolina in the mix. And you double their recruiting budget, which is what would happen. You do all that, now you got a chance of competing with the SEC's quality and the Big Ten's quality with Big 12 quantity. And I think that might be the strategy from the soon-to-be Geico 12. All right, let's run to a break. When we come back here in just a minute, we do have a bit of an update. We do have a bit of an update regarding the Clemson v. ACC lawsuit that we talked about with John Blau back on Monday. We do have a bit of conversation about that. I will tell you what it is when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, I got to run down to the car. Y'all stay right there. I'll be right back. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. Appreciate it. Had to run an errand. So we do have a update. The ACC put a point on the board in their set of lawsuits against against Clemson. We, of course, had Clemson file a lawsuit in Pickens County. We then had a countersuit by the ACC in Mecklenburg County in North Carolina. Broke yesterday that North Carolina Chief Business Court Judge Louis A. Bledsoe III denied Clemson's motion to stay and rejected in part its motion to dismiss the conference's countersuit. His decision came after a hearing between both parties on July 2nd at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse in Charlotte. According to the Greenville News, this article posted by Darian Carter, who I will hopefully have on the show for us next week to give his thoughts. Bledsoe's denial of Clemson's motion to stay. A stay is a ruling by the court to stop or suspend a proceeding or trial temporarily or indefinitely, means the ACC's lawsuit against Clemson in North Carolina will proceed. He also ruled the arguments over who owns Clemson's TV rights if it leaves the conference and the penalty for withdrawal from the ACC will proceed in litigation. Bledsoe rejected Clemson's motion to dismiss on sovereign immunity grounds, writing Clemson waived that by engaging in commercial activities rather than governmental activities in North Carolina. Bledsoe wrote in his decision, quote, "The only court that has jurisdiction over FSU, Clemson, and the ACC, and thus the only court that can ensure a consistent, uniform interpretation of the grant of rights agreements and the ACC's constitution and bylaws, the determinations at the core of the pending actions, is a North Carolina court." Bledsoe cited conflicting conclusions in different courts would create a, quote, "procedural chaos and tremendous confusion," end quote. The writ also says only a North Carolina court, most likely in a single consolidated action in North Carolina, can render consistent, uniform determinations binding the ACC, FSU, and Clemson concerning the documents that are at issue in all four pending actions. The four being, of course, Florida State's lawsuit against the ACC in Leon County, Clemson's lawsuit against the ACC in Pickens County, the ACC's lawsuit against Florida State in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, and the ACC's lawsuit against Clemson in Mecklenburg, North Carolina. Now, what does this mean? As we spoke with John Blau about back on Monday, this basically gives the ACC home court advantage. Now, John Blau said he doesn't know how much that means. John Blau said that in his conversations with multiple business law experts, I think is what I'll go with here. In his conversation with multiple business law experts, he said most of them said there's not really a home court advantage when it comes to a legal suit like this. I'm going to be straight up, and this may shock you because I am a dumb person. I don't know if I believe that or not. And I don't know if I believe that in part because of the statement that I just read to you from Judge Bledsoe. That statement being, only a North Carolina court can do this. See, I don't know why that would be. All right. And again, I'm a big dummy. If there are any business lawyers out there listening to the show right now, I would love to have you on the show. I'd love to have you call in and let us know. I don't know how that's the case because to me, a legal contract, whether it is signed in Mecklenburg, North Carolina, Tallahassee, Florida, Clemson, South Carolina, Athens, Georgia, Eugene, Oregon, or Honolulu, Hawaii. A business deal can be scrutinized anywhere, can it not? A business suit, you would think, and again, I'm an idiot, all right? But a business lawsuit, I would think you would hear it anywhere, right? You would be able to hear it anywhere. An agreement signed over here in contractual law should theoretically be able to hold up wherever you read it. A judge in Tallahassee should be able to read the same contract as a judge in North Carolina, as the same contract as a judge in Clemson, South Carolina, and all three should be able to say. Now, there are obviously different regulations regarding state laws in each. But this is a contract that was signed with interstate intention. This is a contract that was signed by every party knowing that business decisions made involving and under the terms of these contracts were going to be signed across multiple states and therefore fall under interstate commerce legality. I don't know how that impacts it. So I don't know what this means. The ACC put out a statement that said, quote, "We are pleased with today's ruling as it confirms that only a North Carolina court can render a decision that would apply to both Clemson and Florida State. The opinion also reinforces what the ACC has clearly articulated from day one. The North Carolina courts are the proper place to enforce and interpret the ACC's arguments." Again, sure. I mean, of course, that's going to be the ACC's position, right? Like that statement doesn't hold any weight to me, just like it would not hold any weight to me if Clemson and or Florida State put out statements that said, we disagree with this. Of course you do. You want home field advantage. I just don't know what home field advantage there is to join or to add to this conversation. I don't know. Now, there are more court battles taking place. Clemson and the ACC have a hearing set for today at the Pickens County Courthouse. Judge Perry H. Gravely will rule on the. Why are all these these judges have just such formal names? You never hear like Judge Joe Smith. Perry H. Gravely.
It's the sign of times right there.
I mean, it's just so like. I read a name like Judge Perry H. Gravely, and I assume my man's coming out in like a powdered wig, Anyway, he will hear that today. That legal battle started back on March 19th after the university filed its initial complaint against the conference in Pickens County. This next round of decisions is going to be interesting because now you've got a North Carolina judge that says, yeah, only a North Carolina court can hear this. It was signed in North Carolina. The parent entity of the contract is a company based in North Carolina. That's the ACC. But what if Judge Perry H. Gravely looks at this and his verdict is, yeah, I mean, it's a business contract. You can read a business contract anywhere, right? Like it doesn't suddenly Harry Potter Marauder's map disappear when it crosses into another state. Right? Gandalf didn't enchant this thing to only be readable by people who are born in North Carolina. I don't know. What I do know is this thing's going to get very ugly. Clemson is, as is Florida State, making the argument that the ACC did not try to maximize profit in order to make sure that the ACC was able to keep up with other conferences as conference expansion ends up continuing. And the ACC is going to argue, doesn't matter whether we did or didn't. You signed it. You signed it in 2016. So what's going to happen here is that we've got a little bit of an Ursula Ariel kind of situation going, in that the ACC is going, it says right here, should you not receive true love's first kiss after 3 days, you know, you're in my service forever. And Triton's going, wait a minute, this is a really dumb Disney reference. Triton's going, yeah, but like she didn't know what she was signing. She's a dumb teenager. She's an idiot. You don't get to do that. And Ursula's going, I'm sorry. There's the line. There's her X. There's her signature. Is it not? And everybody's going, yeah, but again, dumb teenager made assumptions that you were doing this in good faith. And Ursula's going, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how you think I did it. Doesn't matter if you think it was in good faith, bad faith. We gave you the contract. You had the opportunity to read it, agree to it, sign it. You signed it, deal with it. And here we are. And there's a judge in Tallahassee. There's a judge in Pickens County. And there's a judge in Mecklenburg County that are all looking at this thing and going to decide whether or not this is even a battle to be heard in a court, and if it is, which court it should be heard in front of. 42 days until we play football. For God's sakes, can we just play football?
I feel like it's Clemson and Florida State saying, teacher, he won't let me. That's what it feels like.
No, it's more than that. I mean, I get it, but it's more than that. Basically, here's what Clemson's saying. And this is my understanding. And again, I am a dumb person, okay? So take what I say with a grain of salt. Basically, what Florida State started and what Clemson is agreeing with here is that when the ACC was preparing this media rights deal, they didn't maximize profitability. And because they didn't maximize profitability, Clemson and Florida State have the right to say, look, it's a long-term contract and we agreed to it. But now that we've agreed to it, a handful of years later, we recognize that we agreed to a contract with an entity that is not operating in a way consistent with trying to grow the profits, because they didn't sign a contract for X amount of dollars. They signed a contract, their media rights contract, for percentages of dollars, with the assumption, and I think a fair one, that the ACC would do everything within their power to make sure that that number they get a percent of is as high as possible. This is why, and we talked about this, when the media rights agreement was signed, it was, if I recall the story correctly, and we've talked about it a bunch of times on the air, I think it was John Swofford's kid, the old commissioner, who was working for a small TV network that picked up third-tier rights, like track and field rights, but media rights nonetheless, that picked up some ACC competition rights for a pittance. That's a good word. I should use that more. For a pittance. And then that commission's son, working for that network, was suddenly promoted to like vice president, and he got the corner office, and he got the company beamer, and you know, the Visa Black card or whatever. Like, he got all these concessions, all these promotions for getting that ACC media rights contract, which, while it's not valuable in the grand scheme of things to that little company, it was immensely valuable. Now they get to put live college sports on the air. And that's a growing spot for them. And so Clemson and Florida State are basically going, yeah, but was that the most you could have gotten for that? Right? Was that the highest contract? We're arguing that the ACC did not search out the highest profit that they could have gotten for these rights. And because they didn't search out the highest profit that they could have gotten for these rights, that means we're not getting the amount of money that we could if they did. And because of that, we went out. And that's the argument on the books. The argument on the books is the ACC is not working to get us the most amount of money possible, and therefore we should have the right to break our agreement because we all work under good faith that was going to be what the ACC did. But we feel like we can go in front of a court, we can go in front of a judge, and we can make a good, sound, legal argument that while they are not technically violating the contract, the good faith understanding that they would be working to maximize the contract, that's what's being violated, and that justifies us being able to get out and keep our media rights before 2036 or 2036. And the ACC's going, nah, dog, you signed the contract. That's what it is. And so Florida State and Clemson want to argue in front of judges in their own county, right? Both because there's home court advantage, but also because obviously now they don't have to send lawyers and put them up in hotels for weeks at a time in Mecklenburg County. Now, like it's cost efficient, et cetera. Does it matter? Is it going to change anything? IDK. No idea. So we'll keep an eye on this, but that is the most recent development. That's the most recent thing that we know. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back here in just a minute. Got a few more things that I want to get to on the show today. And I want your thoughts too. 844-326-3663. That's the Renewal by Interstate of the Carolinas fan phone. Text us 71307 on the text line. Start your text with fan. Are there any thoughts that you guys have? Here's the other thing. To me, this is a massively important story. And there's like no public interest in it at all. Nobody cares. It's wild to me because this is a set of lawsuits that will dictate the future of Clemson football, of Florida State football, of ACC's existence. And it's like such a convoluted story that it feels to me like nobody really gives a crap about it. I don't know. It's wild. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, got a live read right here, and we'll be right back. Stay right there for me. Nice, man. The Rob Brown Show is back on your radio. Joey B pops into the chat. Joey B, he does work in this realm. A lot of dork references on the show. A lot of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings references today.
This realm was the Middle Earth.
Yeah, right. He says, good faith is an incredibly hard argument to win because you're trying to gauge someone's intent. You need something like an email from the ACC saying, I know we could get more, but I don't care. Yeah, again, you would know more about this than me. I defer to Joey B in this conversation. I would, however, argue, I think there's another option on the table. I could be wrong here. This is probably how I would approach it. I think that I would probably approach it this way. Could I take, for instance, the contract that was signed with the commission's kid who then got the big promotion at the network? Could I go find comparable contracts for other conferences that are worth more? Right? Could I go look at the Big Ten? Is there, and again, I don't even know if this is out there, right? Because I will say this. We know the numbers, but I don't know the breakdowns of the different contracts specifically between, say, the Big Ten and Fox or the SEC and ESPN. We kind of know the values, and maybe this is a failure of me as a host. I don't know. But I also have a real hard problem reading legalese. Could you go find a contract for similar sports carried by the other conferences and bring that up in the court and go, all right, listen, the Big Ten's making, and I'm just making up numbers here, the Big Ten for their track and field rights are making $1 million a year, and the ACC signed a contract for $500,000 a year. And make the argument that while maybe the valuation of your conference overall isn't as much as the Big Ten's or the SEC's, that the valuation of that particular aspect of your athletics departments are. I don't know. Again, this is why this is going to be such an interesting process for me. Because I think there are going to have to be some very creative arguments from Florida State and Clemson. I think that the judges are going to the business philosophy of individual judge. This is one of the other reasons that Clemson and Florida State are likely pushing for these cases to be heard in their counties, not in North Carolina's. Because they're going to have a better idea and the ability to do likely more extensive research into the judges that are likely to hear these cases and know, all right, this judge over here, Judge Joe Johnson over here, a judge with a normal name that doesn't require a thick British accent to say it. Judge Joe Johnson over here, he's got a little bit more loose interpretation of what intent is, or more importantly, how to prove intent. And we know that. Whereas Judge Percy H. Graves III in Mecklenburg County, he's a little more strict, right? He's a little bit more letter of the law. He's a little bit more by the book. He's a little bit more direct in regard to what contracts mean, what contracts say, et cetera, et cetera. And so we want it in front of our guy. We want it in front of a guy that we know is going to be a little bit more friendly to a Florida business or a South Carolina business than a North Carolina guy is about a North Carolina business. So I don't know. I'll tell you this. As a big fan of every legal show that's ever been on TV, give me all the William Shatner Boston legal shows. Your Honor, I would argue that the rights of the ACC are just as valuable when it comes to track and field as the SEC. But give me all of that. I will be following these court cases with inappropriate levels of enthusiasm. With inappropriate levels of enthusiasm. But I think it's important to do so. I think it's important to do so because, as I have pointed out, the future of your school's athletic department hangs on the rulings of whatever judges this case ends up in front of. The future of the ACC depends on whatever judge or judges these lawsuits end up in front of. The future of your athletic, because here's the thing. If Florida State and Clemson end up in front of a judge, if Florida State and Clemson end up in front of a judge that says, yeah, no, you're screwed. You're in the ACC until 2036. There's no way out. Then either your school is going to have to take a ridiculous amount of its budget to pay to get out of the ACC. And oh, by the way, even if you do that, there's still a possibility that the ACC owns your media rights anyway till 2036, which kind of defeats the purpose of getting out at that point. Actually, it makes it where there would be no purpose to getting out at that point. Or you're going to be stuck in the ACC until 2036. And here's the thing. The ACC's value, if Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina and Miami will stay in it, will still continue to rise. But guess what? The ESPN's contract with the SEC, Fox's contract with the Big Ten, they will continue to rise too. And so while Clemson is sitting there making more money from the ACC from 2025 until 2036, they will be losing money, relatively speaking, to South Carolina, to Georgia. Florida State will be losing money, relatively speaking, to Florida as well. And so, you know, there's the old expression in business. If you ain't moving forward, you're moving backwards, right? My dad used to say that to me all the time. If you ain't moving forward, you're moving backwards. That's possibly 11 years that Clemson is moving backwards while all of their rivals, both actual and geographical, are all moving forwards. Do you think they're going to take it easy? No. So this is, again, it is something that I do not think is garnering a lot of interest from fans. I don't think fans care, but I say this and I say it respectfully. I don't think a lot of fans really understand how big these court cases are. I don't think fans really understand how important these are. Because if Clemson and Florida State can't find a way to win this and they are stuck in the ACC through 2036, you're going to lose tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into your coffers over that time. You're going to also lose tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, respectively, to your rivals, to the schools that you're competing against both on the field and on the recruiting trail. That's why this is important. All right, I'm going to put all of that away because, like I said, I don't think there's as much reaction to this as there should be. So when we come back, let's talk sports. We'll talk about Deion Sanders and Colorado football because I'm really intrigued by some of the comments he made at Big 12 Media Days. We'll talk a little NFL football. I'll give you some of my surprise teams this year, teams I think will overperform. All that more coming up in the fourth hour of the show. Before we get there, let's do a sports flash. The Braves took the first two in a 4-game set against Arizona, but split the series 2-2 after their second consecutive loss to the Diamondbacks last night, 1-0. Max Fried surrendered 5 through 6 while striking out 7, but a fifth-inning home run by Eugenio Suarez cost Atlanta, who had just 5 hits of their own and only 1 for extra bases. The Braves back to 10 games over 500 at 51-41 and a 9.5-game deficit to the Phillies in the East. The double-double streak of Chicago Sky forward Angel Reese is still alive despite a 91-76 loss to the Liberty last night. Reese just crossed the mark with 10 points and 10 boards, bringing the run to 15 games. Pittsburgh Pirates rookie Paul Skeens joined Nolan Ryan as the only 2 pitchers in MLB history with multiple starts of 11 Ks and no hits in one season. Skeens threw 7 innings of no-hit baseball before the Pirates pulled him with a pitch count of 99. Yasmani Grandal drove in Jack Sawinski for the lone run of the game in the Pirates' 1-0 win. At your Sports Flash, the Rob Brown Show is back after this on the Fan Upstate. Crushed it. All right, boys and girls, we'll be right back. Stay right there. The Greenville Triumph will be at home against Union Omaha. That's our rivalry game Saturday night. The final hour of the show, the final hour of the week starts right now here on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, I said I wasn't going to stay on this, but I will. I want to read you this. This is a I love this. I love Twitter sometimes. I really do. It's the best. It's the worst thing to ever happen. It's the worst thing to ever happen to humanity, and also one of the best.
You and Alice having that fun going down that rabbit hole this weekend,
I
today, aren't you?
freaking love it so much. So there is a a fan-written open letter to Clemson and Florida State from Big 12 fans. And it's so good. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to read it to you because I freaking love it. Okay? I do. Here's what it says. It says, quote, "Dear Clemson and Florida State, listen, we get it. The Big 12 wasn't on your radar and probably not your first choice. Fine. But think about this. AAU status is a scam. Remember when you were in high school and they let that guy on campus who wanted your parents to drop cash to list you in the who's who of high school seniors book that no one read and no one cared about? Same thing. There are a ton of schools with world-class research institutes and money that laughed AAU off decades ago. It's a way for a bunch of stuck-up northern schools to gatekeep their conference. Them. And the SEC, let's be real, they despise both of you. They have gone out of their way to screw you over every single chance they get, and you're not even in the same conference with them. The Gators and Gamecocks are going to go out of their way to keep you out because they don't want you in conference and in-state competition. It's like taking a new job because the money is good, but you know every single person in the offense is a selfish, and that's never going to change. Is it worth it? The Big 12, yeah, we're not as prestigious and not as exclusive. We've got some younger programs and some rookies to the power conference world. Straight up, the money won't be as good if you were to join the Big 10 or the SEC, but it will be better than the ACC, and you would both come in as marquee programs. And I feel pretty good saying the rest of the conference is cool with that because it's more cash in everyone's pocket. Also, this conference is all caps fun. I know, who would expect to hear fun used in college sports anymore, but there it is. We're like that neighbor down the street that's rough around the edges, but always throws banging parties with the good booze and weed. Also, not sure if you noticed, but our commissioner is freaking him. Anyhow, just some random thoughts on a Thursday morning. Sounds like the door is open, and you're welcome here. End quote. Y'all? I love this letter so much. I really do. Like, here's what's weird. Can I tell you that I don't disagree with anything in it? Is that weird? I don't disagree with anything in this letter. I think this open letter from Big 12 fans to Clemson and Florida State, to be honest with you, is spectacular. Comparing AAU status to the who's who of high school seniors book is incredible, because I'm going to tell you right now, I can flash back to the year 2003 when Rob Brown was prepping to graduate high school, Choctawhatchee High School in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And Rob Brown was racking up acceptance letters to schools around the country. All right. And then one day I got a letter in the mail. And the letter said, paraphrasing, because this was a very, very long time ago, but paraphrasing, the letter said something to the tune of, "Dear Mr. Robert Brown, it is our pleasure to inform you that you have been selected as eligible to be named in the who's who of high school seniors for the year 2023. And for the low payment of whatever it was," and it wasn't cheap, "for the low payment of blank, an enrollment fee, an administrative fee, if you will, your name will appear amongst the most elite high school seniors around America." And I remember feeling giddy. I'm a big smart boy. I've earned this. Who's who? Rob Brown. That's who. I earned this. and my parents stroked a check for however many $100 it cost to get my name in this book. And I thought, this is something that I'm going to be able to brag about. This is something that I will be talking about for years and years and years. This is something that is going to be a highlight of my academic career. And then I remember the day that that book came in, and it was nothing more than a useless half of a phone book. That was it. It was like names, high schools, and that was it. That's all the book was. And I remember getting that book and being so proud of my name being in there. And y'all, if you gave me $1 million, I couldn't tell you where that book is today. Couldn't tell you where that book is today. I'm going to tell you this. I got that book. I opened that book. I flipped to the B's. I opened up the B's. I scrolled down through the 100,000 B's in that name, and I found mine, Robert Bleep Brown, right there, along with like 17 other Robert Browns from around the country. And I went, this is great. This is great. And then I never again have said, I was a hoo-hoo amongst high school seniors in 2023. Because so was everyone else that I know. So is everybody else in my peer group. That little moment probably cost my parents like $150 to get my name printed in that stupid ass book. And it has never come up in my life ever again. Never again. Hey, what credentials do you have for this job? Well, I was a who's who amongst high school seniors back in 2003. Oh, excellent. Sir, we think you're a wonderful fit for this job. I bet you if 50 people applied for that job, 45 of them were who's who amongst high school seniors. Because I'm pretty sure they just ask everybody. Pretty sure they just ask everybody to be in that book. So I love that. They got me right off the hook with that. And then, and I've said this before, I said this in the last hour, the paragraph about the SEC is, in my opinion, it's correct. It's correct. And you don't have to agree that this is what happened. And it's fine if you don't. But I do. I firmly believe that the Southeastern Conference is the reason that Florida State didn't play for a national championship last year. Firmly believe that the SEC and ESPN coordinated with each other to ensure that an SEC team got into the fold. I firmly believe that, TBH. So if you're Florida State, if you're Clemson, because again, if they screwed FSU, as I believe that they did, do you think that they would have treated you any different just because you're Clemson? Do you think they would have treated you any different as another member of the ACC? No. Had the roles been reversed and it was Clemson and Florida State spot, you got screwed too. I'll tell you, I'll go one step further. I don't have any way to prove this. This is speculation at its finest. I have no way to prove it. But I firmly believe even if Jordan Travis hadn't gotten hurt, even if Jordan Travis had not gotten his knee snapped the wrong way, even if Jordan Travis was available for the Natty, I still think Florida State would have got bounced. Legitimately. I still think FSU would have been left out. And instead of just going, well, Jordan Travis got hurt, they can't win it, I honestly believe they would have said, Alabama beat Georgia and they played in the SEC. We have to have them in there, right? They earned it. Sorry, Florida State, but unfortunately, your strength of schedule wasn't good enough. I can't prove that would have happened, but I believe it would have happened. And if it would have happened to FSU, I got news for you, Clemson. I got news for you. They'd have done it to your ass too. you would have been sitting at home too. All right? Because while obviously over the past 10 years, Clemson has been a much more valuable brand to college football than Florida State has. You're not as valuable as Alabama. And you're not as valuable as having an SEC team in the mix. You're just not. So I don't have an issue with that. Listen, it's real simple. This decision, if there is one coming down the pipe, this decision's real simple if you are Florida State. This decision's real simple if you're Clemson. I honestly don't think that going to the Big 12 is the worst thing in the world. I really don't. Like, is it as good as the SEC? No, it's not. No, it's not. And anybody arguing that it is wrong. It's not. Is it as big? Is it as good as the B1G? Let's call a spade here. And let's do it while Lonzo's not here to defend it. Here's the Big Ten. Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Purdue, Rutgers, UCLA, USC, Washington, Wisconsin. All right. Washington made the Natty last year. Got run, but they made the Natty last year. Okay? Against Michigan, a Big Ten team. But if I was to sit here and go, okay, let's count truly valuable franchises here. Here's the truly valuable franchises. And I won't even say competitive in football. I'll just say valuable. Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, USC, UCLA. That's it. That's the list of valuable conferences. The Big 12 is, to me, not stupid, ridiculous far behind the Big 12. The difference is the television contract that the Big Ten has with Fox Sports. If Florida State and Clemson find their way into the Big 12, if they do, and if the ACC 6 find their way into the Big 12, I'd be willing to say that conference will end up with a long-term television contract that is less valuable than the contract that Fox has signed with the Big Ten, but not dramatically less valuable. If those ACC 6 schools find their way into the Big 12, you're not going to make as much money as you will in the Big Ten or the Southeastern Conference. But you will make dramatically more than they'll make in the ACC, and you will be closer to the Big Ten and the SEC than you will not be there. So I do think there is something to say for that option being on the table. It's not the one you want. You know what this is? This is spending your sophomore and junior seasons pining for the head cheerleader. This is you spending your sophomore and junior years in high school just having puppy love for the head cheerleader. And then you get to your senior year and you walk in on your first day of school and you see her and you're making eyes across the room. And then somebody walks over and they go, "She thinks you're gross. She thinks you're a gross person. You should probably stop. You're embarrassing yourselves." And then over walks the head volleyball player. She ain't bad. She ain't bad, right? She's not the head cheerleader, but she ain't bad. And she goes, "I want you to know that I think you're the cutest boy in school. I want you to know that I think you're handsome and you're charming and you're funny and you're smart, and I'll give you whatever you want and do whatever you want. And you got a decision to make. You can keep pining for the head cheerleader and think to yourself, I got time to win her over. I got a whole year to win her, even though she showed no interest in you. Or you can go, it ain't the head cheerleader, but volleyball player. She real cute. She real cute. And you know she'll make out with you behind the football bleachers while the head cheerleader's over there flirting right in front of you with the starting quarterback and the starting point guard. She's flirting with everybody that you can't be right now. But old volleyball girl's like, hey, you want to go under the bleachers and make out? Is that as fun as what you want to do with a head cheerleader? Nah. Is it still a pretty good deal? Uh-huh. It ain't bad. It ain't bad. So, make your decision, FSU and Clemson. Make your decision. Do you want to go make out with the best girl on the volleyball team who, she ain't the head cheerleader, but she's pretty cute and she's willing to go make out right now? Or do you want to spend another year pining after a chick who showed no interest in you at all? In fact, not only showed no interest in you at all, but she's making out with the head quarterback right in front of you. She got no respect for you. The only way she will is if one day you show up in a new Beamer and you go, my grandma died and I got $1 million in inheritance. And now she's like, well, you're not so bad now. Not so creepy now. You don't smell so bad now. Make your decision, man. I don't know. This whole thing, like I said, we're making jokes and we're making light, we're making silly. But like I said, whatever happens in these lawsuits, and if the Big 12 makes the offer and goes, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get $80 million, $85, $90 million a year. It's not going to be the $1.15 you'll get from the SEC, but it's a hell of a lot more than the $50 you're going to get from the ACC. This whole thing is going to have a huge impact on your ability to compete with South Carolina, with Georgia, with Florida, et cetera, et cetera. So, again, we're making jokes. We're having fun, yada, yada, yada. It is kind of a big deal.
I thought you were going to say, you have this really hot cheerleader. Along comes Pigpen and from Charlie Brown, and they're going to tell you you're the best looking XYZ right now. I really thought you were going to say Pigpen.
No. Listen, the Big 12 is not Pigpen. The Big 12 is more attractive than the ACC. You are currently dating like the third string chick on the chess team. All right? You're dating a third string girl on the chess team. She's sweet. She's sweet. She's a sweetheart. She's nice. But respect to chess team chicks, all right? But what are you adding to my social status? What are you adding to my what are you bringing to the table in my relationship? And if you're Clemson and Florida State, you're not the starting quarterback. You're like the starting running back, right? There's value. You're bringing stuff to the field. You're bringing stuff to the offense here. Are you the guy they're calling up on the stage at pep rallies? No, they're not bringing you up on the stage at the pep rally.
Like Bobby Boucher.
Yeah, they're not. You're not the one getting featured on the school news every morning, right? The president of the school isn't going out of his way to come over and talk to you, but you're bringing value, and people know you have value. And here comes hot volleyball chick going, hey, I see you out there. You play real good. I like your style. You run hard. You run physical. I'll make out with you under the bleachers right now. Whereas the head cheerleader's like, yeah, you don't really do anything for me, right? You don't really do anything. Texture says, as a Buckeye and a B1G fan, the AAU is bull. Yeah, listen. I mean, you guys know me. I'm a big dork. I respect academic success. I respect academic integrity. I respect all of these things. I very much do. At the same time, we're talking football here, my dudes. We're talking football here, guys. I will say this. The dumbest decision in all of this is the Big Ten. If what spurred this conversation on is true, if the reason we're having this big conversation is because the Big Ten truly, genuinely would not welcome FSU, Clemson, and Miami into the mix because they don't have AAU accreditation, the biggest dumbasses in this story are the Big Ten. It's, respectfully, please don't murder me, Tony Petitti. We demand academic excellence. All right, dude, but we're talking about a football conference here. We're talking about a football conference, right? Like this would make sense if you were talking about adding teams to bring value to the, the TV contract of the academic team, of the debate team. But I got to tell you right now, I'm willing to take a bet that of the entire armada listening right now, I'd be willing to bet like less than 1% ever turned into a debate team competition. A chess team competition, right? Like if the Big Ten truly is going to pass on Clemson, Florida State, Miami because they don't have AAU accreditation, that's the dumbest thing of everything we've talked about. All right, we're late. Got to take a break. The Rob Brown Show's back after this. It's the Fan Upstate.
Oh, boy. I've never understood why they play tennis on grass. Like, what is so appealing?
Yes.
Where you see it gets like messed up where they're at the whole time.
It changes the way the game works. I've interviewed so many tennis people the last 2 weeks on BetQL about Wimbledon. It just changes the way the game works. The ball bounces differently. The spin is impacted differently.
Is that the same way of clay?
Yeah, it's like the best way that anybody put it for me is I interviewed Pam Maldonado, who covers tennis for SiriusXM. And I was like, how would you explain it to like non-tennis people, right? And her response was, did you play basketball? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, all right, I want you to think that you're a point guard and you've spent your whole life dribbling on a basketball court, hardwood floor, right? She goes, you ever play in like a church that had a carpet basketball court? I'm like, yeah. She goes, you ever notice how like if you get used to dribbling on hardwood and then you go dribble on carpet, the ball bounces different, right? When you go between the legs, the spin catches the carpet, the ball flies on you more. The dribble's a little dead. You got to dribble it harder. She goes, think about it. You spend your whole life dribbling on hardwood and then you show up one day and now you're playing on a carpet gym and you've got to figure out and like not you get to show up and practice on it. You just show up and you're like, this is what you're playing on. She goes, think about how much different you have to think about the game as you're trying to dribble in a game on a carpet hardwood or on a carpet floor instead of on a hardwood floor. And then imagine you do that for like 2 or 3 games and then you go back to playing on a hardwood. Now everything's changed about going back over there too. Yeah. And I was like, that's a really good way to put it. Really good way to put it.
One minute. You know you're looking forward to going and playing that pickleball, right?
Never played pickleball in my life. If I'm going to go out to a court and play, I'll just play tennis.
So, buddy of mine says pickleball is fat person's tennis.
Correct. And old people.
My Swiffer Sweeper makes it easy. Sweeper heavy duty dry cloths have ultra pads to trap them on hairs like a hair magnet. And when I'm finished cleaning up my hair, Sweeper takes care of his too. Now the hair is gone. All thanks to Swiffer. Try Swiffer Sweeper heavy duty dry cloths. I promise you'll love them or your money back. And also try Swiffer Sweeper Wet to make quick work of tough sticky messes.
The Rob Brown Show carries on. It is the Fan Upstate right here on a Friday morning, getting ready to end the show, getting ready to end the week. And we've done a bunch of court stuff. Why not throw this one in there too? Why not? Why not just train wreck the end of the show with boring-ass court rulings? Sure, why not? Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in an article posted by NBC Sports. It goes this way, and I quote, college athletes whose efforts primarily benefit their schools may qualify as employees deserving of pay under federal wage and hour laws, a U.S. appeals court ruled Thursday in a setback to the NCAA. The court, in the latest challenge to the NCAA's long-held notion of amateurism in college sports, said that a test should be developed to differentiate between students who play college sports for fun and those whose effort, quote, cross the legal line into work, end quote. U.S. Circuit Judge L. Felipe Restrepo wrote, quote, with professional athletes as the clearest indicators, playing sports can certainly constitute compensable work. Ultimately, the touchstone remains whether the cumulative circumstances of the relationship between the athlete and college or NCAA reveal an economic reality that is that of an employee-employer. A colleague, in a concurring opinion, questioned the difficulty of such a process, noting that nearly 200,000 students compete on nearly 6,700 Division I teams. The NCAA had hoped to have the case dismissed, but it will instead go back to the trial judge for fact-finding. The ruling follows a 2021 Supreme Court decision that led the NCAA to amend its rules to allow athletes to profit from their name, image, and likeness. In May, the NCAA announced a nearly $2.8 billion revenue sharing plan that could steer millions of dollars directly to athletes by next year. The Division I athletes and former athletes behind the suit in Philadelphia are seeking more modest hourly wages similar to those earned by their peers in work-study programs. They argue that colleges are violating fair labor practices by failing to pay them for the time they dedicate to their sports, which they say can average 30 or more hours per week, end quote. So this is intriguing. Basically, what is being said by an appeals court. So this is not going to be the final ruling. It will go back to the circuit court. The circuit court will go through a fact-finding process before any sort of ruling is made. But basically, the argument that has been heard, and at least two judges have so far said, is that if the work, let's say effort, I don't want to poison the well. If the effort being put into the sport benefits the college and or university in a way that basically is in this case one-sided, that these players should be allowed to serve as employees, which would require pay from the schools. But, and this is where I think, I don't know that any of us actually ever really considered this. There may be a split. It may be that different sports or those who are arguing for pay in those individual sports, that different sports may have a different bar for whether or not playing for a school is considered beneficial to the school, or if it's considered something that the athlete does as a hobby, something they do for fun, right? So for instance, if you play football for the University of Georgia, it could be argued that in a sport where any given Saturday, 70,000 grown-ass people pile into a stadium in order to bark at opponent fans wearing the other color, it is going to be argued that those students are performing their duties as football players as a benefit to the university. But women's field hockey players, for instance, players that are, not bringing out 70,000 people per competition, players that are out there performing in front of nobody or very, very small crowds, they're not benefiting the university. In fact, if anything, they are costing the university. And I do think that this is something that is going to come into play quite a bit down the line. Basically, schools being able to argue that, we should not have to pay our lacrosse players. Now, that's not a good one because lacrosse actually does sell tickets. Not that many, but it does. Let's say, I don't know, pick a college sport that nobody really cares about. Our
field
hockey team. And again, before I even jump into the example, let us remind ourselves that there is a whole nother unknown frontier in Title IX that we have to pay attention to. But the field hockey team, if Georgia's field hockey team sells 30 tickets to a game, it is going to cost them more in field hockey, I want to say balls. Is that what we play with? Or is that what they are in field hockey? They're ball, just regular, like field. What is a field? Let's see. What is a field hockey ball called? Field hockey ball is typically called a field hockey ball or just a hockey ball. Okay. So they probably spend more in hockey balls. Yeah, I'm going to say that on the radio a lot. They probably spend a lot more on hockey balls for any given competition than they make back in ticket sales for that. And so the University of Georgia, depending on how this ruling ends up going down the line, the University of Georgia is eventually going to make the argument that, y'all, this sport cost us money. It does not make money. Now, I don't know how this works out, because if that argument one day holds water in a court of law, pretty much every school's off the hook for everything except football. And honestly, most schools are still going to make this argument about football, right? Like, this is actually a stance I have mildly approached in years gone by. I am 100% down with name, image, and likeness. I am very hesitant on naming athletes employees. Very hesitant on naming athletes employees. And I'm hesitant because I do think you will do more harm than good to university athletic departments by doing so. And it is not that I am worried about university athletic departments. It's that I'm worried about all the athletes that are on those squads. I do not want to see universities start cutting their other sports to be able to pay an hourly wage or an annual wage to football and some schools' basketball players down the line, right? I don't want to see women's field hockey go away so that Rutgers can pay their starting quarterback $75,000 a year. I don't want to see that. What I do think should happen is that Rutgers' starting quarterback should be able to go out into the community and go, hello, I'm Rutgers' starting quarterback. And if anyone would like to give me $5,000, I'll come hang out at your business for a weekend and have businesses go, sounds good to me. Here's $5,000. See you at Bob's Used Cars this weekend from 5 to 7 Saturday and 10 to 7 on Sunday when Rutgers starting quarterback is live signing autographs. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. What I don't want to see is a school obligated to start paying them and they go, oh, I got to pay $75,000 to every player. All right, here's what I'm going to do then. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to cut track and field. I'm going to cut track and field from the athletics department, and all the money that we put into track and field, all the money we put into transportation, all the money that we put into equipment, all the money that we put into hosting meets. We're going to take all of that, and that is now the starting salary for our starting 11 on offense. Now we got to pay the defense. So we're going to cut men's gymnastics next. We've never sent anybody from our men's gymnastics program to the Olympics, so we're going to cut men's gymnastics. And we're going to take the men's gymnastics money and we're going to hand that money over to the defense of the football team. That's what I don't want to see. This is why I've said, like, let NIL be NIL. Let it be unrestricted. I don't care if NIL is entirely unrestricted. I don't care. Guys should be able to take the brand that they have built, go out into the public market space, and sell that brand for what it's worth. Totally fine with that. I'm kind of against them becoming employees. And I'm kind of against them becoming employees, not because I don't think the work that they do should justify compensation, but because it all loses money. And if you take it, if you got to start handing more out to half the employees, I mean student athletes, I mean employee athletes, you're going to have to take it from others. And if you got to take it from others, no, not for agents. That's more of a transfer pool conversation. I'm saying if I want to pay the Rutgers starting quarterback and I got to give him, New Jersey says I got to pay him a minimum wage. All right, well, now it's a bidding war, right? So Rutgers can go, we're Rutgers. We don't have a ton of money. We'll give you $27 an hour to come play at Rutgers on top of your NIL deal. And then if this kid's, let's say, a 4-star quarterback, and right up the road is Maryland goes, what they offer you? $27 an hour? We'll give you $45 an hour to come be our quarterback. So it is a free agency in that case. But eventually somebody's going to sign the kid to come play quarterback for unlimited NIL and $75 an hour at $50 a week plus game day. Oh, and by the way, we got to start getting into laws about overtime pay and hazard pay and, you know, what benefits is the company legally required to pay to take care of that they don't already, et cetera. And for every one of those dollars that I've got to figure out now and make an offer to a kid that I want to recruit, that money's got to come from somewhere. So unless the boosters are willing to step up, and by the way, if you're a booster, where are you most likely to put your money? Into the school that is going to pay the backup left guard $26 an hour to play, or into the NIL collective that's going to go out there and go to the best players? Hey, man, if you come play for us, we'll give you $1 million a year. If you're a booster, you're probably putting it into the collective, if I had to guess. And if they start getting all the money, and Rutgers doesn't have it, but they still got to come up with all these obligations for employment of their players, that money's got to come from somewhere. And so adios, men's gymnastics team. Auf Wiedersehen, women's swimming and diving team. Farewell, so long, good night, women's field hockey team. We need that money to pay our offensive line or whatever, right? That's why my line is drawn with NIL should be open and unregulated, to the point that I don't even think the colleges should have any say on what businesses these players represent, right? If there's a 21-year-old player on campus and he wants to sign an NIL deal with Rob Brown Ale, because I brew a great brewski, if he wants to sign a deal with Rob Brown Ale, he should be allowed to do so. He should absolutely. And he should be allowed to go to the brewery, and he should be allowed to pimp that beer, and he should be allowed to wear the Rob's Brown Ale t-shirt, provided he's 21 and all legal. Fine, don't care. If a kid wants to promote a strip club, gone, young man. No problem. If a kid wants to promote whatever, as long as it ain't illegal, I don't care what a kid promotes. All right. And if you make your decision, or you allow your kids to be influenced because the starting quarterback pimps, I don't know, Sexy Rita's strip club, that's on you, dog. Just like it is when pro athletes do it. That's on you. That ain't them. If they can make that back. All right. Don't care about that. I do draw the line at making them employees. And I draw the line because I think that money to pay them has got to come from somewhere else. And I think you're going to end up killing off the potential careers of 1 million athletes to benefit a couple hundred. And that's where I draw the line. Last segment next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. The Field Hockey Mafia.
I was laughing when you said that. That's bothering me.
Eugenio Suarez hit a solo home run in the fifth. Atlanta's lost 2 in a row. They dropped 9.5 games behind the Phillies in the NL East. Philadelphia has won 3 straight and 7 of 10. The Diamondbacks, meanwhile, 500 with the win at 47 and 47 third in the NL West. 8 games out of first place. They've won 2 straight and 6 of 10. Atlanta heads to San Diego today. Spencer Schwellenbach faces Randy Vasquez. The Diamondbacks at home against the Blue Jays. Ryan Nelson starts against Dario Rodriguez. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo, and save with Progressive. Download the Odyssey app, search the Fan Upstate, and listen anywhere on your phone. I'm Chuck Sanders, that's the Sports Flash on the Fan Upstate.
From the Ingles Market Studio,
Upstate. 97.7 FM Greenville. 97.1 FM Spartanburg.
from the free Odyssey. Now, the Infinity Sports Network.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or belts slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Granger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call clickgranger.com or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done. I'm Bopper, founder and chairman of Burke America Parts Group, a family of brands that includes RepairClinic.com, an appliance and HVAC parts solution company.
Sunday. What is the MMA schedule this Sunday? I'm not gonna lie, I've been checked out for a hot minute. Because is it a UFC card this weekend? Oh, that's right, it is. Rose and Tracy Cortez. Is that what you're talking about? I'm gonna go with yes. Oh, in Argentina. That's Steven, that's good work. That's real good work, bud. Real good work. That's great work. I like that. I like that a lot. You got me good. That's good work. Yes, Sunday is a soccer day for sure. The hell is going on in Athens, Georgia right now? 2 more Georgia players have been arrested on separate misdemeanor charges of reckless driving, according to booking records from the Athens-Clarke County Sheriff's Office. On Tuesday, offensive tackle Bo Hewley was charged with failure to maintain lane and improper driving on the road and reckless driving, both misdemeanors. Documents showed he posted a total of $26 in bond. $26 in bond. What is the justice system coming to? On Wednesday, starting linebacker Smail Mondon was charged with racing on highways and streets and reckless driving. Records show he also paid $26 in bond and was released at 12:25 a.m. on Thursday morning. According to Athens-Clarke County Police reports obtained by ESPN on Thursday, a police officer saw 2 vehicles side-by-side accelerate, quote, at a high rate of speed and begin to race one another, end quote. Mondon was in the left lane driving a 2022 black Dodge Charger, and his teammate, freshman defensive back DeMello Jones, was in a 2021 gray Porsche Panamera. I don't know Porsches. I don't know cars. I'm not a car guy. I'm a car idiot, all right? Like, I figured out how to turn mine on, and then anything after that, I need somebody, all right? Anyway, according to the report, the officer pays Mondon at 75. Wait a minute. Quick question. All right, so 2 cars racing each other. 2 players, Mondon and Hewley, have been arrested in separate events. Am I missing something here? All right. According to Athens Clarke County Police report, which was obtained by ESPN on Thursday, a police officer saw two vehicles side by side accelerate at a high rate of speed and begin to race one another. Mondin was in the left lane driving a 2022 black Dodge Charger, and his teammate, freshman defensive back DeMello Jones, was in a 2021 gray Porsche Panamera. So then why was there only one guy arrested here? According to the report, the officer paced Mondin at 75 in a 40 and pulled him over. Mondin denied racing and stated he didn't know the driver of the other vehicle. Jones then pulled over and told the officer he was checking on his So he lied to the cop too? Kirby! What do you got going on over there, broski? What are we doing here? Here's my favorite part. After it was established that they were teammates, the officer stated that Jones was released on citation for racing because he voluntarily pulled over and was not the primary vehicle in the traffic stop. Oh, okay. Word. So, kids, if you're caught racing, just pull over and be nice, and you'll get off with it. I don't know. On the way to the jail, Mondin continued to deny that he knew Jones, according to the report. The officer asked Mondin about his remark about the group chat, and Mondin changed the subject and began asking about the officer's personal life.
Just keep it to yourself.
Oh, man.
The cop, how about your personal life?
No. Wait. Okay. All right. So here's what went down. The officer stated that Jones was released on citation for racing because he voluntarily pulled over, was not the primary vehicle. According to the report, as Jones was beginning to leave, Mondin leaned over to Jones and said, quote, "Do not say anything in the group chat," end quote. Then they got in the car. Dude said, "I don't know him. I don't know him. I don't know him. I don't know him. I don't know him." The cop said, "Well then, what's all that group chat stuff about?" And then Mondin went, "How's the wife and kids? You got a kid? You got a kids? You got a kid? You seem like a very nice young man. I bet you have a beautiful wife. How's your dog? Do you have a dog? You a cat guy? You're a dog guy, right? You're a cop. You're totally a dog guy. You're not a cat guy, right? Yeah, but man, look, what's the group chat talk? What's your favorite pizza topping? You a pineapple on pizza guy? I'm a pineapple on pizza guy. I like pineapple on pizza. I think people who don't like pineapple on pizza just don't like new things. That's what I think. Yeah. Hey, sir, I'm asking you about the group chat. You know what my girlfriend said to me the other day that I could lose weight. Can you believe that? Can you believe I'm a college football player. She said I need to lose weight. Can you believe? But dude, what about the group chat? Hey, I'm going to see Creed in 2 weeks. That's pretty cool, right? It's pretty up. It's incredible. He ain't at Georgia for the academics, says Joey B. That's fact. Curb, what are you doing, Kirby? What are you doing, Kirby? I believe this is Georgia player number 77 arrested during this offseason, all for reckless drive. How many idiots do you have on your team, Curb? Like, at this point, you just got to know. I had Barrett Saleh on BetMGM or BetQL yesterday, and we asked him about it, and he goes, I'm going to tell you boys straight up. He's like, I'm from Atlanta. I'm in Athens a lot. He goes, the Athens County PD do not play. He's like, if you blow a red light in Athens County, you're going to jail. If you drive like 6 over, you're going to jail. I was like, well, then what is happening here? And he goes, I'm going to tell you right now, just like
what he was saying about how Athens Clarke County is pretty strict. They really are.
Sure. I know they are. Like, I'm not doubting that. They absolutely are. What I'm saying here is if the friggin' Georgia Bulldog football team hasn't figured this out, I don't know how to respond to it, man. I don't know how to respond to it. Lunacy. And I'm sure like most small town PDs, if you get pulled over in Athens and you go, hey, I play for Georgia. Like, I'm willing to bet if you're like 6, 7, 10 over, they're like, listen, don't be an idiot, dude. Don't, like, if I see you again, I got to take you in. So don't screw this up, right? You're dropping 75 and a 45. I don't care if you're the damn Pope. They're getting you. All right? Kirby, get your boys together. Get your boys together. What are we doing, bud? Hey, that's it for the weekend. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Brandon for filling in for the great Malonzo. He'll be back next week as well. I hope you all have a spectacular weekend. Don't drink and drive. Mike Gundy, I'll punch you in the face. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Greenville Triumph at home tomorrow. Furman Paladin Stadium taking on Union Omaha. It is a rivalry game. So if you haven't been to a Triumph game, tomorrow's the one to come to. I'll see you out there. Have a great weekend. The Rob Brown Show returns on Monday right here on the Fan Upstate. Later. Oh, man. All right, guys. I got people to do and stuff to see. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Sincerely, if you're not planning already, come out to the Triumph game tomorrow night, Paladin Stadium, kickoff just after 7 o'clock. I'll be there. It's going to be a party. Tailgate in the parking lot beforehand if you want to get your debauchery on. But again, don't drink and drive. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all back here on Monday. You're all lovely people. I appreciate you so much. Goodbye.